Hey, boys and girls, and welcome to Linux Troubleshooting and Best Practices course. I have broken down this course in 5 different sections to meet your needs. In section 1, we'll go over the course overview, which we are doing right now, and I want you to please spend a couple of minutes with me and understand what exactly I have included in this course. So this way it will be a lot easier for you to know or make a decision whether this course is the right fit for you. All right. In section 2, we'll go over troubleshooting best practices. And we will be covering basic rules of IT troubleshooting. We'll tell you how to follow policies and standards, and then I'll go over the patience that you should have to work with others. Moving on, we'll talk about the documentation that you should need in when you are troubleshooting. Then how to get online help. Also, we'll go over understanding issues before you make decision or jump on the gun. And we'll also talk about how or when you should involve the vendors whenever there's a need. And then we'll talk about the monitoring the logs, which is a very important tool or logs where you could find a lot of useful information that will help you troubleshoot more efficiently. Then, last thing I want to talk to you about is how you could be honest and ask questions when there are issues. All right, moving on to section 3, we'll talk about conceptual troubleshooting. Things like we'll talk about cannot access the server, very basic thing. What are the things you should know? Who is who, and how you could get information from which person without wasting your time. Then we'll talk about when you have issues like cannot install operating system, you need to have some conceptual understanding before you start troubleshooting. We'll also talk about when your virtual machine, is running slow. We'll talk about what is the program, what is the service, what are the difference between program, service, or application management, how you could manage these programs and services in terms of stopping, starting, or so on. Then we'll also talk about the system resource monitoring. All right, moving on to section 4, that's where we're going to set up our lab. So lab meaning introduction to this section, we'll talk about how to design the lab, introduction to virtualization, we'll go through download installation of VirtualBox, and then we'll create a new virtual machine. Once we have the virtual machine, then we'll go ahead and download and install our Linux operating system. And the whole purpose of having your Linux operating system so you could try out a few of the troubleshooting steps that we will be covering in this course. And of course, many other troubleshooting that you could face when you are actually going through some corporate job or anything for that matter. All right. So in section 5, we'll go through some troubleshooting system access issues, some basic ones. For example, you cannot reach a server, very common issue. Cannot connect to a website, cannot SSH as a root user, firewall issue, terminal client issue, and so on, like troubleshooting PuTTY connection. All right, so this is about the course overview. Now, you should know at this point that this is the perfect course for you. All right, I'll see you inside the course. Hey, folks, the first and foremost thing that you should know before you start troubleshooting any IT related issues are some rules. Basic rules of IT troubleshooting is to follow a systematic approach. And we will follow those one by one. And the very first thing that you should do is to identify the problem. That is to clearly understand the issue at hand. Then, once you know the issue, then establish a theory, which is to formulate a hypothesis based on available information. Now, this step involves analyzing the available data, considering possible factors that could be contributing to the issue, and narrowing down the potential causes. The theory you establish will guide your subsequent testing and troubleshooting efforts. Okay, the next thing that you should know is testing that theory. So conduct some tests to verify or refute your hypotheses. Okay, and the next one is implementing a solution. So you tested, you know the theory, you developed a hypothesis. Now apply a fix to fix the problem that you have at hand. Then verify full systematic functionality. Ensure the problem is resolved and the system is functioning correctly. Okay, and the last one is once everything is functioning properly, is to document the process. So record the issue, solution, and any lesson learned for future references. All right, we'll touch base on few of those items that we just discussed in detail in the later lectures. I'll see you in the next one.
Since we are on the topic of recovering a machine, whether it's a physical or it's a virtual machine, they all are critical machines that run in the production, and they are the one that runs the production workflow. So if you are in IT department, you probably have heard of this word or this acronym many times. DR, disaster recovery. DR. Many people talk about that. But what exactly disaster recovery is, if you do not know? I'm going to read the definition of the disaster recovery right off the wiki, and then I will explain you in a simple language. Disaster recovery involves a set of policies, tools, and procedures to enable the recovery or continuation of vital technology infrastructure and systems following a natural or human-induced disaster. What does that mean is it's not just a system sitting on one location or sitting in location ABC, and the other system is sitting on location DEF, and one site goes down, you bring up on another site. This actually includes all the policies that wrapped around it. What are the tools that you would need to recover your system? What are the policies? Who do we need to contact? How we could escalate? Whether the manager needs to be involved, the upper management needs to be involved. Which departments do we have to notify? Do we have to notify the customers? How the customer will be notified? Who will notify the customers? If we are going to step over each other's toes, then it's going to be a chaos. So what they do is they just not create a disaster recovery, they also create a disaster recovery plan, how it works. Because the systems that we are running, that workflow, that applications, that platform is running, that if that goes down, that application goes down. And that application could be anything like accounting application, human resources application, or any type of finance application that we are running. And those applications run on our computer platform. So we need to know, how do we notify the other groups and other departments? So those are the policies. What are the tools that we need to use? How are we going to bring up the system on another system or another site? Which application comes first? Whether database comes first or web server comes first or application comes first. So those are all the things that you have to write down before a disaster recovery plan is implemented. So that's exactly how the disaster recovery is, and how the DR can be implemented. Again, that covers around the same conversation I just had, a same tools and procedures I just talked about. When you are involved in the DR conversation with anybody, the first thing you need to know, what are the applications or critical workflow that will be impacted? Who are the users that will be involved? What are the systems that you need to bring it up? These are all the questions you need to ask, and and whichever way they are answered, you have to document them. There are two types of DR sites. Mostly the disaster recovery not completely involves like from one site to another. The disaster recovery could be anything from one room to another as well, or from one system to another. But I would say 80% of the time, the disaster recovery actually involves a site to site operation. There are two different types of sites. One is local and one is remote. Local is if it is within the same city that you are in, or within the same building as well. But most of the time, it defeats the purpose of having two sites at the same location, because if what happens, a location goes down, there is a disaster at the location. So the best way is to create a disaster recovery at the remote location. So if you are, let's suppose, in New York, it's best to create another site somewhere in another state, and that is called remote. So anything that involves in New York has to be brought up in another site, let's say New Jersey or California. So that is considered remote site. The DR testing, that is more important than any of the above that we talked about. Why? Because I have seen a lot of companies actually have the disaster recovery in place. They have the systems, they have the applications, they have the resources, they have the manpower. Everything is there to actually support the disaster recovery, but it has never been tested. So if, I mean, it's not necessarily that you have to wait for a disaster to happen. A company spends so much money setting up another site or setting up another set of systems. That site has to be tested. So make sure that disaster recovery plan is completely followed through and tested. So this is one of the subject I lectured that I wanted to cover. Make sure the disaster recovery is enabled or is implemented in your environment. If you do not have a disaster recovery, talk to your manager. Find out how you could start a disaster recovery plan, or even start the conversation of disaster recovery. If you have a disaster recovery and something happens, and in the event of a disaster you recover the system on another site with proper plan, you will be a star. That I know for sure. So keep these few things in mind. You should go over it and talk to your manager about it.
Hey folks, in this lecture we are going to learn a very critical topic for both real life system administration and the RHCSA exam. We are going to understand the Linux boot process and how we can reset the root password if we lose access to our system. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and click on that like button if you like my video. Also click on that notification bell. Thank you. First, let's understand what the Linux boot process actually is. Booting means starting the system and loading the hardware components along with the operating system so that everything runs properly. However, sometimes during the boot process, errors can happen. The bootloader might get corrupted, kernel errors can occur, or maybe we forget the root password, or the system might simply refuse to start due to some issues. In such situations, we need to interrupt the normal boot process and use modes like rescue mode or emergency mode to fix the problem. And this is extremely important from the RHCSA exam point of view as well. If you get any boot troubleshooting task in the exam, you will be able to confidently solve it. Even in real life scenarios, especially when you are working on production servers and the system is not booting up, this knowledge is very useful. Before we start the practical part, let's also understand what GRUB is. GRUB stands for Grand Unified Bootloader. It's the first screen that appears when the system starts. It allows us to choose the kernel version, modify boot parameters, or enter into rescue or emergency mode. Now, about rescue mode. Rescue mode is a minimal environment mainly used for recovery purposes. It allows you to perform administrative tasks such as repairing file systems or resetting passwords when the system can't boot normally. Emergency mode is even more minimal than rescue mode. It gives you the most basic environment with only the root file system mounted. It is mainly used for critical repair tasks when almost nothing else is working. Now let's begin our practical demonstration. First, I restart my Red Hat virtual machine. As the system reboots, I keep my eyes on the GRUB menu. When the grub screen appears, I press the down arrow key to pause the boot process. This is important because if you don't interrupt the process, the system will boot automatically into the default target. Once the grub menu is paused, I press the E key on my keyboard. Pressing E allows us to edit the boot parameters for the selected kernel. This is very useful because we can modify the boot options temporarily without changing permanent settings. Now I down the arrow key and look for the line that starts with Linux. At the end of this line, I carefully type rd.break. This command tells the system to break during boot and give us a temporary root shell environment before switching to the main root file system. It's important to know that you always type rd.break at the end of the Linux line in the grub editor. That's where we interrupt the boot sequence. After typing rd.break, I press Ctrl and X together. This command boots the system with the modified parameters and drops me into an emergency shell. On the screen, I now have a basic shell prompt. Here I type the command mount hyphen or remount comma rw/assist root. This command remounts the root file system in read and write mode so that we can make changes. Right now, I am working in the initramfs environment, which is a temporary environment before the real root file system is loaded. Next, I type chroot/sysroot. This command changes my root environment to the actual system's root file system. Now I am effectively working inside my actual Linux installation. At this point, I have full administrative access. Here, I can perform many critical recovery tasks like resetting passwords, repairing configurations, or fixing corrupted files. Now, I type passwd root. This command starts the process to reset the root user's password. I type the new password and then confirm it by typing it again. The system confirms that the password was successfully updated. After resetting the password, I need to make sure SE Linux relabeling happens properly on the next boot to avoid permission issues. For this, I type the command touch /.autorelabel. This creates a hidden file that triggers SE Linux to relabel all files during the next reboot. Now I type exit to exit from the chroot environment. After that, I type exit again to exit the emergency shell. These two exits will restart the system. As the system reboots, I see the normal boot process happening. Once the system finishes booting, the graphical login screen appears. I log in using the root account and the new password I just set. And it works perfectly because the root password has been successfully reset. That's it. In this lecture, we have learned how to interrupt the boot process, enter the emergency environment, and safely reset the root password. We covered what the Linux boot process is, what grub is used for, and how rescue and emergency modes help us recover a system. These steps are essential for our HCSA exam tasks and critical production troubleshooting. Keep practicing this process so that you become confident in handling boot issues. See you in the next one, and let's keep learning together.
Who is who? This is a very basic thing that everybody should know about whenever they start troubleshooting any issues. So, of course, this is one of the basic fundamentals of a conceptual troubleshooting to know who is who, meaning where the problem is coming from. So, first look at our client. Any machine that is trying to connect to another machine, that machine is called a client. When it goes to the other machine to request something, that machine is called the host. You're going to hear these names interchangeably back and forth: client, host, server, or a different type of server that is hosting those services. So you need to make sure what is the difference between each one of them. Client talk to the host through many different protocols, which we will talk about later. If the client wants to talk to the host and wants to access the website, they go through the protocol which is HTTP, and so on many other protocols that is involved. So take an example of like a person who, like a regular people who want to go to a restaurant. They go to the restaurant. So for them, the person who's going to a restaurant is the client, right? Client for the restaurant. When they go to the restaurant, they have a host, or who actually, there's a seating host, there's a host who actually comes on the table for the water, there's a host who comes in to, and take your food information, what do you like to order, whatnot. So you see that that restaurant is actually serving you. So the restaurant in this case is a host, and the person who's requesting is the client. Now coming back to our IT world, we'll look at a client as someone who's a requester, where the call goes from A to B. It's a requester, initiator, who actually initiate the connection to the host server. And of course, in a regular way or regular simple language, a pair, someone who is actually, for example, if you have a computer, you want to go to Facebook. What do? You actually open up a browser. So the browser is kind of a client, a platform that allows you to connect to the host. And the host has what? It's a server, it's a running a web server, it could run NFS, DNS, SendMail, or any kind of application. That is the reason you connect from client to host, right? Otherwise, if you do not get any of that information, or if you are not trying to access some of the information online, then why do you actually need to connect to the host to begin with, right? So that is why every time a request is initiated from client to host, remember that there's a client that actually has some type of tool installed in it. For example, if you are trying to connect to the Windows server, you would need a RDP client. If you're trying to connect to a Linux machine, you would need an SSH or PuTTY client. So you do need some type of tool to connect from client to host. And the reason I included pair here is because if you are, let's say, connecting to a DNS or NFS, there are companies, of course, who charges you for storing your data. For example, OneDrive, they give you some drive space to keep your files, and they charge you for that. So in that case, you become a pair, and they are the server. So this is what you need to remember in who's who. This thing will serve you a lot better down the road. If you have this concept clear, then you will become a proficient in troubleshooting any type of issues. Sounds good? Follow policies and standards. Let's look at over what are the things that we should follow when you are working in a corporate environment. The first thing is communication. Communication is the most important things that you should do or notify the users or your boss or management that what is being done to the system, or why you are troubleshooting, or what happened, why there is a failure. So communication is the key. So find out how you could communicate. Is there a specific tool that you have to use to notify user, or do you just simply have to send an email? These are the things you have to follow. Then involve the right people. Involving the right people meaning, do you have to notify your boss, or do you have to notify your boss's boss? Do you have to notify, if you're working in a customer environment, do you have to notify the implementation managers or the engagement managers? Anybody who actually deal directly with the customers, do you have to let them know that the customer system is down? Then open up a ticket. If they have a ticketing platform, and I said before, 9 out of 10, every company has a ticketing platform where they open up a ticket if there's any issue. Or you could open up a ticket if you are doing a maintenance. You open up a ticket if you are upgrading certain system. So you need to use a ticket for everything. So same thing for troubleshooting. If you are troubleshooting anything, you need to find out if you need to open up a ticket. Sometimes if it is critical issue and impacting more than one customer or more than one stakeholder, then you will require to open up a ticket. Resolution techniques or method. What are the techniques that you need to follow? The resolution method. Do you have to go through a certain procedure to access system console, system ILO? Do you have to notify someone? Is there a specific password? So these are the resolution techniques or method. Do we have to go from A to Z, the format, or you could just jump in to the machine and find out what happened and start troubleshooting? You have to know the method. Maintenance schedule. Like, is your company following the maintenance schedule? Like, they only do maintenances on the weekend, or are they doing maintenances only on the week? Sometimes people don't like to do maintenance on Friday or on the weekend. So these are the things you need to find out when you're doing maintenance or even troubleshooting. Let's say the reason I'm bringing this up is because if you are troubleshooting an issue and during the troubleshooting you are being told by the vendor, or you just find out from an article that you need to upgrade in order to fix this issue. Now, the upgrade, of course, requires a maintenance window. That maintenance window, if you are troubleshooting an issue on the weekend and the only maintenance takes place is during the week, then you need to know these things. Approval process. Who approves the process? If you need to apply a patch, or if you need to troubleshoot something that is related to an upgrade, you need to know what the approval process is. Sorry, I went a little ahead. So these are the few things that you need to follow in terms of following policies and standards. Patience to work with users and groups. The first thing is that, of course, when there is an issue, please do not panic. I have seen many incidents in my life, in my career, of all the system administration that work that I did, that people get panic. And when they get panic, nothing can be done the right way. Things can go haywire. So don't do that. Don't get panic. You need to stay calm. That things do get break. They do break. That's fine. That's perfectly all right. And that is why you are here. The company have you to fix those issues. So stay calm. Bring everybody together. Then involve others. As I was saying that just in my last sentence, involve others in your group to seek help. If you notice that your system is working fine and you've been told the system is down or system is not working fine, and or the user cannot connect to the database or cannot connect to the web server, bring the people who are actually directly responsible for that. So if that's a database, bring the database guys online. Bring everybody together. If you need help from your superiors or for people been there for a while, or your manager, do not hesitate. Ask for their help. Just ask that what can be done. Is something that I've seen? Do you think that is something that you have experienced in the past? Work patiently with other groups. I know when you start putting together a big group of people, there is always finger pointing. Hey, this is not a systems issue. This is a database issue. No, this is a networking issue. Oh no, this is application related issue. Everybody will start pointing fingers. It's okay. It's fine. Most of the time, fingers are being pointed always on the system side, and the reason they point fingers at system side is because we, the systems team, actually provide the platform for database to run, for applications to run, for operating system to run. So we are the main providers for the entire platform. So that's why they always come back and say, hey, because the resource or compute resource is not working fine. So it's okay. You could just take that professionally and come back with a good reasonable arguments that why do you think that it is not our issue. And the only reason you could say that is if you have a solid proof. Explain the situation when others get panic or annoyed. Yes, because you are not panic. Okay, perfect. But what about if other person is annoyed on the call or on the bridge? Then you have to stay panic one. Oh, sorry, you have to stay calm, of course. Then tell the other person. It is perfectly fine to tell the other person, please be calm. Let's get this thing resolved together if we stay calm. Do not think of, oh, if I say that maybe he will get offended. No. People don't get offended if you just tell them nicely. Just don't say, hey, relax. So you're talking too much. Don't say that. So just say, please stay calm. Let's work this thing together and let's find out where the issue is. And when they see you working on the issue so calmly, they will automatically get calm. Set up a conference call to bring everyone together. Of course, when you need to have the people together, there has to be a platform to bring them together. Some people use Skype or some kind of video application. Some people just do a phone bridge calls. Some people actually get physically together on a conference room. That is fine. Whatever your medium is, you could utilize that to bring everybody together. Hand over to someone with more experience. Meaning, if you think there's a situation and there's a troubleshooting that you're doing that is above your expertise, then do not take it personal and please give it to someone who has more experience. When I say that, it means, let's say if you are a system administrator, like I could tell you about myself. If I'm a system administrator and there's something comes up that involves scripting, a script that caused an issue, and I'm looking at a script, and that script is probably written in Perl. Now, I do not have much experience in Perl. I could read it, but I really don't understand what exactly it is doing at certain things. So what I would do, I will give it to someone who has more experience with Perl, or even my junior. If the person has been hired to the company 2 months ago, and I've been with the company 6 years, again, don't get it personal. The person who came in 6 months ago, he probably have more experience in Perl. Just tell him, hey, take this call. You have more experience on Perl. Try troubleshooting it. Then do not let others derail you from the issue. Yes, this happens many times. What I mean about with that is people when a lot of people get involved in a call and they start talking and they start stepping on each other's toes, they actually start talking something that is not relevant to the entire conversation. If the system is down or crashed or something, they start talking something else. Oh, you know what? That happened something like that when I was working on a database issue, and that database had an issue that I'd never seen it. Because, hey, Paul, do you know why the database issue had? Because it has some table extension problems. See, these are the things. I'm already taking you off of the subject. And I don't want to take you off of the subject. And to keep everybody on the same subject, tell them, hey guys, please, can we please concentrate on this issue? It is perfectly fine to say that. And again, going back to my main topic, stay patient. Next one we have in line is the documentation or ticketing process. That is one of my favorite part because I strongly believe anything that is documented correctly, it will always help you down the road. Meaning if I have an issue today and I document that issue can reoccur maybe a year from now or 10 years from now. We could always go back to that ticket or always go back to that document and see exactly what happened. It is just the same way if you are a lawyer and you are actually fighting a case. Lawyers do that many times, that they go back to certain incident or certain verdicts that took place in the past, and they bring it up as an example. You know, in 1988, this judgment took place because of that. How do they know that? Because there is a documentation of every trial that took place. Same thing, same format we wanted to follow here. We have to have a documentation of every troubleshooting or every issue that we have. Whether you do a documentation like a raw document on a Word format, or you're doing a ticketing process. So look for any existing documentation your company has. And I'm telling you, every company has documentation. If they do not have any kind of proper documentation, then this is your time to shine. Start creating documents, start creating fancy documents, put a process together how an issue takes place. So if an issue comes in, then how do you troubleshoot? Who do we notify? All that comes in a documentation. If they have a ticketing system, put that together in a ticketing system. They probably have a wiki. A lot of companies do have Wikipedias and internal ones. Look for the documentation in there. If they don't, go ahead and post your article in there. Ticketing system, as we discussed, 9 out of 10 people do have ticketing system, postmortem or incident report. Um, Many big companies, every time there's an issue, they would require you to put a postmortem or an incident report together. An incident report is something like which will give you a brief summary of what exactly happened and what steps that were taken to resolve the issue. If your company does not have any of these documents, again, start creating one. Incident report, you could find it online as in templates that you could put together, so you could follow that. Root cause analysis. This is also some of the things that people follow. The root cause analysis, maybe not at the time when issue happened, after the fact when issue took place. So everybody come together on a call and they try to find out what exactly happened and what can be done to prevent issues like that. So please go through this root cause analysis with your boss. If they do not have a process in place like that, tell them this is something that you want to come up with. That every time there's an issue, especially critical issue, you want to create a call. And that call includes all the team members that were involved during the troubleshooting, and yourself, your manager, and someone else who could document all that. Put together root cause analysis, what happened and what can be done to actually mitigate that issue. So you need to find that out if they have that in place. If not, again, there are many tools online that you could look into and to find out if there are any tools that can provide you the format of root cause analysis. Document vendor recommendation. So if there are any recommendation from the document, meaning you're troubleshooting issue and the vendor says, hey, you're actually working on version 2.0 and you need to upgrade it to 2.5 in order to fix this issue, then you need to document that, and then of course present that to your manager or whoever the whatever the approving procedure is. Then training. Of course, the training comes the last. The reason because you went through the whole incident, you went through the whole troubleshooting, you fixed the issue, you documented the issue. Now the training comes in for those people who were not involved in this troubleshooting, or who are your juniors or subordinates, or even your peers. You need to sit together with them and have a discussion that what exactly happened and what you did and what should be avoided that you did that actually going to make the whole process more efficient. So this is why I focus more on documentation and ticketing system, because it actually provides a huge ton of value to your troubleshooting and of course to your documentation skills as well. Getting online help. Well, for me, this is one of the most efficient tool to get your issue resolved, because 9 out of 10 the issue that you're having, someone else had the same issue. So go online and search for it. So before we do that, and if you have never done it, you select a preferred search engine, meaning are you going to use Google, Yahoo, or whatever that is. Just stick with one. Look for specific error in messages. When you're sticking up a message on search, do not type like my server is down. So what are you gonna get? You're probably gonna get tons of article and that's gonna go nowhere. Basically pick the exact error message that you're getting and put it in there, and then you will see that you're going to get so many related articles out there that is only specific to your search, or maybe it's going to go more and more and more narrow down if you try to search for specific error. If you do not have an error, then put your search specific to your environment, meaning say server is down in Linux environment, server is down in Linux Red Hat, server is down in Linux Red Hat version 7, server is down in Linux Red Hat 7.5. See how much narrowing it down? That's how you're going to get the exact same problem, and if someone has the same issue. Sign up for Linux community forums. There are so many community forums out there. I will recommend you to go sign up. Not only because you wanted to get helped and troubleshoot your issues, but also help others as well. And you know, as they say, what goes around comes around. If you help as many people out there, you will be get helped, and it's just a karma thing that I believe. All right, ask question if you cannot find your answer. Meaning, if you are searching for something, you can't find the exact answer, then there are forums there that you could put an answer, you could put your question on. If you have a support with the vendor, then perfect that you go there. If not, some people just wait. If it's not critical, they just post a question online and they just wait for the answer. And I tell you, you'll be amazed how many answers you're gonna get. People actually jump on the question and answer that. Then moving on, be aware of security issues though. So that's a other side of reality. Getting online help is very good, but there is a dark side of it as well, and that is a security risk. Do not let anyone log into your system. If someone is willing to help you and they said, hey, why not let me log in and see what's going on? You don't know the person, of course. I'm sure you know that. This is a basic ABC. You're probably not going to let anybody come in. Other thing is hide your IP address or hostname. If you are copying a string from your log, most likely it will have a hostname to it or IP address to it. Just dark it out or just simply take it out and then search for it, or then send a message to someone to look for it. Do not search online from the server which is having issue. Meaning if your server A is having issue and you're getting online from that server, don't do that. Go from a server, your own laptop, not the ones that are actually the server, the production environment server. Do not send any documents that has company information, which I mean like sometimes you have a notepad or word pad that you want to share with people. Do not send that. I wouldn't recommend that. Sometimes that those documents if you go to detail of that document, you'll see the company name and when it was created, your name, and a whole bunch of information. Do not download a file or script and run it in your environment. You're probably gonna see helpful articles. Hey, this issue can be resolved if you download this file and run it. A lot of times you'll find these type of things in Windows, not as much in Linux, but of course, keep an eye on it. Be aware of it. Do not download anything or any script, or even if you think that script will help you resolve the issue, don't do that if you're working in the corporate environment. And the last thing I have, make sure to add a thank you note to a helpful article. If you found that and one of the article helped you resolve the issue, that is perfect. Please do thank the person who actually put that article together or actually helped someone else resolve the issue. Send one more thank you to him or her, saying that you did resolve my issue as well too. So it's just to put a smile on his or her face. All right. Understanding the issue before making a decision. Many times we do make that mistake without knowing the exact error message or without knowing the exact problem. We'll just come to a decision or we just implement the change, and next thing you know, uh-oh, that was not the issue. So just make sure, ask yourself these questions. Who is the source? Meaning from where the issue is happening. Who is the target? What is the IP address or host name of the target? Same thing, what is the IP or host name of the source? What is the port number? Whenever there's a problem, I know there's always a source and target and port number is involved, because if it's communication issue from one server to another, then most likely that's the issue. But if it's an issue just with its own server, then you still need to know whether you are on the right server, whether what communication is being used, what kind of application issue it's having, who will be impacted. This is another thing that you need to ask yourself, is if you are making this change, all right, if it's a hasty decision and you're making this change, who is going to be impacted? Is it a test environment that you could revert back, or nobody's gonna be noticed? Okay, go right ahead, make a change, find out what will happen. If not, we will change it back. Nobody's gonna be noticing. But if it's a production environment, just be careful. Who do you need to notify? We covered that already. Make sure your boss knows about it, what you're doing, because he's the one at the end who actually is going to cover your back. He's going to stand behind you, is going to say, okay, that's fine. This happened because I was aware of it. If you have not notified your boss, he cannot help you and things could go wrong. Trace the issue. Again, to trace the issue, there's so many ways you could trace the issue from one system to another, from logs and whole bunch of stuff. So again, try to understand the issue before making your decision. I know sometimes people says, look, I'm very smart and I know I found out this issue right away, and they say that during the call, hey, I fixed it, or they just implemented, and then next thing you know, they feel bad. Oh, I shouldn't have said that because that's not the issue. Then what should I do now? Well, that's why, guys, again, I'm saying, please make sure you understand the issue thoroughly. Involve vendors if needed. This is when the situation gets more critical. You're trying to resolve an issue and you cannot get it resolved. Then you have to actually escalate it to the higher experts who actually deal with these things almost every day. Call for critical issues. Have someone from your team reach out to vendors. What it means is, if you are troubleshooting the issue while you are in the middle of the call with people troubleshooting and see what's going on, you probably do not have enough time to hang up and pick up another phone and call the vendor and find out what happened. Because when you call the vendor, they will ask you a bunch of stuff, ask for the logs. So it will take some time. So if you are on another call already troubleshooting, ask someone in from your team to help you out to open up a ticket with the vendor. Upload logs and allow vendors to look through the logs. They will probably not gonna tell you right away, hey, the system is down, I know what the issue is. Because again, as I said previously in my last slide, in with the vendors as well, they actually look through the logs. They actually understand the issue before they make a decision or before they tell you what is wrong with it. They're not going to tell you right off the bat, hey, I know this issue and this is what happened with Thompson company or XYZ company as well, and this is what we did. No, they would never say that, because they know every company is different, every system is different. So same way you have to um, react the same way as well. Allow access to log into the system. Yes, of course, they will ask you to walk them through, share the screen, or even like sometimes people do have remote login access. And vendors do have it. They will log in. They will work with you alongside and see what the issue is. Set up a call between the vendors to avoid finger pointing. What it means is, if you have one vendor, let's say you have Red Hat, and then there is a database involved and you have SQL Microsoft team involved, then the best thing, if they both are on a different calls and they're saying, hey, this is not our issue or this is not our issue, then what do? The best thing you do is you merge the calls together or set up one new conference call and tell them to join the call. And they always do that. If vendors are not afraid to do that, they are open to it and they will join the call right away. Or if you have a call already going on internal, you could open it up to your vendor as well and have them come in and take a look. Don't be afraid the vendor is coming in and you have a security risk. No, vendors are already, they already got your contract. They already got your confidence. So don't worry about sharing information with them. Record all vendor ticket notes and numbers because you need that when you are putting together the incident report or a post-mortem report or any type of documentation you're putting together after the fact when you resolve the issue. Log monitor, this is also one of the most effective tool or a way to troubleshoot issue. Log monitor, think of it a way as if you have if you go to a hospital, you have a problem, or you just go to the hospital to visit someone, and you see at the end side of the bed there is a clipboard, and a clipboard has some papers attached to it. Every time a doctor comes in, they actually look at that log clip and they write something on it. And an anesthesia guy or a medication guy or someone comes or a nurse comes to your room and give you medicine. They actually write that down, everything in the log. Have you noticed why they do that? Because the reason they do that, if something goes wrong or if you start feeling pain, they would know exactly what was given to you, by whom, at what time, or if there's an opposite reaction to it. So these are the things that all captured in the log. Well, nowadays that probably clipboard thing is gone. Now they have all computerized system. Everything is recorded in the computer, but there is still and always going to be the log. Same way, similar fashion, in systems environment, infrastructure environment, we have logs. We need to monitor those logs. We need to check those logs for any errors or fatals or information or warnings that comes in. Those logs are systems logs, application logs, hardware logs, networking logs. These are the type of logs that are out there depending on the issue you are having. You need to look at those logs and trace those logs. What happened? Again, going back to my scenario, if your system is having issue communicating to database, you need to check your systems log and the database log and see where the disconnect is. That's called tracing the logs. For example, web server going to the application server going to the database server. This is an example I picked for the environment that is dealing with the retail web servers. So or anything that has a web server interface. When you go to www.google.com, they have a web server in front. In the middle layer they have an application server which has the engine running, and in the back end they have a database server. Every server that you see has a log, so you will trace those logs. Copy the log error and search it online. Those log errors, if you see a specific error message, see if you could find anything online regarding that. Save the logs before system reboot, because there are many logs that actually disappear when the system is rebooted. So the fact that you come back after the troubleshooting system is resolved, everybody's happy. Now you need to do a root cause analysis, and how you're going to do it when you have the logs, right? But if the logs are gone, then you have no way of finding it. So make sure you save the logs by a different name so the system reboot doesn't delete them. Okay, the last one of the list we have is about being honest and ask question. What it means is, if you made a mistake, just admit it. Yes, tell everybody, yes, you did something to the system, or you were doing something, or you were performing maintenance, and then you accidentally rebooted the system, or you accidentally did something on the configuration file that caused the issue. So please admit it. People actually appreciate the honesty. They will tell you that's fine, we understand mistakes happen, and then what's the course of action, they'll ask you, and they will appreciate you down the road. Then don't make up for if you have not find the problem. If you think that you are troubleshooting an issue and you have not come to a conclusion, an hour already passed or 2 hours passed, just don't say anything just to make the other person feel better, in terms of like you have to lie. Hey, you know what? I found the issue. This is the issue about one of this HTTP configuration file has this type of problem, and you have no clue you're saying that. Just be honest about it. Tell them, hey, listen, it's been 2 hours. I understand. I'm trying my best. I'm going to escalate it if there's a need to it. So just simply don't make up the stuff. Don't be afraid to ask question. We covered that already. If you need to ask question, ask your boss, ask your subordinates, ask your peers what it is stands for. If you know, if there's an acronym in there, you need to know what that acronym stands for. Ask them. That is fine. Sometimes, a new person that is new to the system, there's so much application systems related things in there that you probably don't understand. That is okay. You ask them. Don't think, hey, if I ask for acronym for even, let's say, HTTP, right? It's sometime it has Apache to it, and you say, hey, I'm looking for Apache.log, but there's no Apache.log. There's HTTP.log. So there are things when it might confuse you, but it's okay. You could ask question what they stands for. How the issue was reported. You could tell them, hey, I was just sitting and I saw this alert coming in, or someone else reported to me. Don't say that, hey, I was the one who found that issue. Why do you think this it's related to Linux server or Linux related issue? How the issue is resolved. So that's one of the things that you have to tell. I have seen people in the past when the issue is resolved on its own, and they just say, "Oh, yes, it's resolved because we did something to resolve." No, there are issues, there are situations when when somehow magically issues gets resolved, and you will never find out. So just be honest about that. Tell people, tell the users, hey, the issue got resolved itself. You have no clue what how it got resolved, but you will definitely look into it to find out what was the issue and how it got resolved. It's just that simple, and then you move on with your life. All right. Okay. Cannot access server. Now, this is the most common issue that every system administrator or engineer have faced or will face sometime in your life. And I would say not just sometime, but these are the type of issues you will face almost like every day or every week. So what happens when you pick up a phone or get an email from someone saying, "Hey, I cannot access server A or server B." So how do you resolve it? So the first things before we start getting into any technical type of issues, we have to ask ourselves some of the common sense or conceptual questions. And there are three things that you need to keep those things in mind. One, you need to know the source. Always ask whoever is um, asking you or whoever is complaining that the server or they cannot access the server. You need to know from where they are trying to access it from. So that would be a source. Second thing you need to know is the target or the destination server. So from where to where they're trying to go to. And the third thing is the protocol. Like which protocol are they using to connect from source to target? And those protocol, a few of them, and examples that I have listed here are SSH, SCP, FTP, website, NFS, Samba, database, and many other applications that has their own protocol. And if you know, protocols have their own port number. For example, if you are going from source to target using SSH protocol, that SSH protocol will use port 22. If you're going through a website, if you're trying to access a website from server A to server B, meaning from source to target, then you have to make sure that it is connecting to port 80 for regular web traffic or port 443 for secure web server traffic. So anyway, you need to keep these three things in mind always and ask these questions to the person who is telling you the problem. So how we could start troubleshooting these. So first thing you need to do is find out, is it the source or is it the destination that is having the network connectivity problem? And how do you know? You start from the source, from server A, which is trying to connect to server B. Source, how can you check? There are a few things that you could check. One of them is physical connection. So if a user is trying to connect to a server, just make sure that they have a physical connection, or they're onto their laptop, or if they are on a server, just make sure the server have network connection, actual physical connection. I know I'm putting that in. It's a very little thing that people overlook, but it has actually happened with me as well when we try to connect from one server to another, and next thing we know, there are no cable connections. Anyway, so that's one thing. Second thing, check your own server network connectivity. Meaning, if you are on server A, which is a source server, try to actually ping other websites or other servers and see if it's actually your own server. Try to ping your own default gateway. So if you are on a network of 192.168.1.x, then most likely your default gateway will be 192.168.1.1. So try to ping that default gateway. As soon as you get to your default gateway, another website, then what do you know? Your source server is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Then what do? You try to find out if there's something wrong with the destination. How do we check the destination? Now, first try another server on the same network. Meaning, if you are pinging a server that is on 10.110.120 network, and your server is on 192, then try to ping another server that is also on the same network. Or if you could get to it, try a different network. So this way you will find out that it's not just that network, maybe it's just that computer is down. Then third thing, as I mentioned earlier, you need to check the protocol. Check service functionality from S, meaning source, to D, which is the destination server. So log into the destination server and check service functionality. What does that mean, service functionality? It means that if you are trying to connect from server A to server B, and server B is the one that is actually running the web server, and you are trying to access the web services, then maybe that web server or that Apache server is down. So you see my point? I'm not saying that the whole server is down, but there is a service that runs on that server. That service is down. So you need to check if the Apache server is down. Or if you are trying to connect over NFS, see the NFS service is running. So you need to log into that server to find that out. And then you have tools like Ping, Telnet, or curl to actually check from server A to server B, or from source to destination. If you do not want to log into server D or server B, which is in both cases, my example, both are destination servers, then from the source server you could run a command like ping or telnet to check if the services are running. Primarily, telnet is the main command that will work, because telnet space IP space the port number will tell you exactly if the service is listening on the destination server. Anyway, just to wrap it up real quick, I just want you to know these three basic things: source, destination, and the protocol. Always ask the person who's reporting an issue. Always ask these three questions, and I'm sure you'll be able to resolve that issue within minutes. Cannot install Linux operating system. That Linux operating system could be anything. It could be either CentOS, Red Hat, Ubuntu, SUSE, Fedora, or any Linux flavors. All the tips that I am going to tell you in this lesson applies to every one of the Linux operating system. So here are a few troubleshooting tips that you should know about if you are having installation issue. One is look for the exact error message and search for it online. Meaning, when you have a error message that comes up while your installation fails, simply copy that error message and look it up online. 9 out of 10 times you will see message shows up when someone actually had a problem, similar problem, and they posted that, and someone replied back with the resolution. So that's what you have to do. Second thing is, if an error message specific to the vendor, meaning if it has a number associated with it, Then look it up at the vendor site for any KB article. KB meaning knowledge base articles for the known issues. So many times, what companies or third parties or operating system vendors do, they create records of every time there's a bug or there's an issue with the installation or with the operating system. And they assign a number with that bug or with that issue. So if you search for that specific number on their website, you will get the answer. Then validate your installed media. If you have a physical media, meaning a physical disk, make sure there are no scratches on it. If it is a virtual disk, then make sure it is downloaded completely and validated with a sum check. Sum check is a tool that you could download from the vendor's website that allows you to validate that media is correctly installed or is correctly downloaded or not. Moving on, make sure the computer has enough resources. So the computer where you are actually installing the operating system, make sure if it has enough RAM. Meaning, of course, it's not going to work if you have a virtual machine that is carved out for 8 meg of memory. Those days are over, right? So also make sure it has enough disk. If you have a disk space, let's say 2 gig, most likely it will fail because nowadays the operating system requires at least 1 to 2 to 3 gig of disk space in a computer to install all its files. Then if none of these works, try to reboot your computer. That always works for me. Because sometimes something is stuck in your computer that is not allowing the new programs to get downloaded or installed, or if it is a virtual machine, most of the time the virtualization technology is not letting you to install the operating system, so try to reboot it. If it's a virtual machine, then try to recreate the virtual machine as well, meaning delete the virtual machine and recreate it. If it's a physical machine, then make sure the ROM drive it is actually reading your physical disk can actually read it. It happened one time with me when I was trying to install an operating system and it just not reading it. Finally, I realized the ROM drive was having an issue. But if it's a virtual drive, I mean, if you have an ISO image and you have attached to your physical system through ILOM or through iDrag or any management console, make sure there are 2 steps to it. One is it is attached. Second, that it is mapped. So many times what people do is they attach it thinking that it will now kick off the installation. It will not work. So make sure you do follow the second step, which is mapping the drive. So there are 2 things, 2 steps to it. So remember that. Remember all of these steps, try all of them, and I'm very sure 9 out of 10 these steps will work for you. Good luck. Virtual machine running slow. Yes, you have probably heard that slow word many times, and most of the time you see, hey, the machine is running slow, not just virtual machine. So, but before we get into the machine, we'll find out why a virtual machine runs slow. There are many reasons for a virtual machine to run slow. One of them is memory allocation, which means that how much memory has been allocated for specifically for your virtual machine, not the machine of the entire server, just for your machine. Does it have enough memory to run the required application? Same thing goes for a CPU assignment. Does the virtual machine has proper CPU cores assigned to it that could run all the functions that it needs? Network. Now, some virtual machines have 1 gig of network depending on its host. So if the host only supports 1 gig of network, then what? The virtual machine will get 1 gig. But remember, there are networks in the host environment that are 10 gig. But by default, the virtual technology or virtual platform that you're using can assign 1 gig of network. You could change that. If you could go to the setting and you will see that, hey, the virtual machine setting is 1 gig. The host setting is 10 gig. I could have that changed to 10 gig as well. Then storage I/O. The storage I/O is something that is attached to your Host server, it could be external, could be internal. You could check that out from the storage team. Now, I could show you real quick how the virtual machine or how the virtual machine performance can impact by not having proper resources. So let's take an example of my first Linux VM. I have it here, it's powered off right now. So if I go to setting, I will see right here in the systems, I will see that this system has base memory assigned only 1 gig of memory. And processor, I have 1 processor assigned. Now, if I wanted to change that and improve the performance of this virtual machine, I will change it to 2 processor or 3. Or same thing with memory, I could change the memory to whatever the memory that I want. But anyway, I don't want to change that, so for now I want to cancel and go back into the settings. So that was about system, memory, and processor. Same thing goes for storage. What type of storage you have attached to your system. Is it going to go to its local storage or external storage? Then network part, I was telling you, the network adapter is usually, my machine is using 1 gig, but if you are in a corporate environment, most likely it's using 10 gig. So right now, if you see right here under the advanced, it says 10 Intel Pro 1000 MT. It means 1 gig. So if you are in corporate environment, of course you're probably not going to see the Oracle VirtualBox. You're probably going to see VMware or OVM, or depending on the licensing your corporation has, you will see a 10 gig there. So by default, when you create a virtual machine, it assigns 1 gig to it. So you could change that to improve the performance. Now this is about the virtual machine. Now another way a virtual machine could run slow is if you are running on a hypervisor and the hypervisor memory is running out. Meaning, what if your hypervisor, this is the hypervisor right here, or host, which runs the virtual machines on top of it, what if it has 16 gig of memory and you are given 2 gig of memory, and there are other 8 machines that's also given 2 gig of memory? So 8 times 2, 16, and you're given 2 as well, so that makes it 18. The server only has 16. How can it handle 18, right? It will be a problem if all the machines are running simultaneously. So just make sure that's not the case. Same exact scenarios go for CPU utilization. If your server does not support, the base server does not support enough CPU, no matter how many CPU you assign to your virtual machine, it will not function properly. And the last part goes the same way. If your network adapter on the host is 1 gig, then you cannot have 10 gig on the virtual machine side. So there are a few basic troubleshooting conceptual troubleshooting steps that you should keep in mind. Of course, we'll cover more about how we could troubleshoot technically a virtual machine if it's running slow in the next lectures. Programs and service management. Programs or applications are the main reasons we use computers. Well, in other words, let me put it in simple words. What if you wanted to get on the internet? You use a computer, right? So if you have a computer, just a hardware, you install an operating system on it, then what do you use it for? You use it for nothing. It's a useless piece of device. It has hardware and it has operating system, but without the application running on it, we don't really use computers. And those applications are like Microsoft Internet Explorer, or Facebook, or chat, or Skype. Those are the applications we need to run. That is the only reason we use computers. So we'll talk about what is a package. So tell me, what is a package? An application, a program, service, daemon, process, or thread. You heard these terms so many times, and so many times you heard that interchangeably. Install a package. No, install a program. How about we install an application? So in this lesson, I am actually going to tell you exactly what each term is. So let's say, first of all, we'll pick the package. A package, when someone says, go ahead and install that package. In reality, a package is something that is put together into a file, and that file is usually like a tar or a zip file. You could install that or download it actually, sorry. You could download it from the internet or somewhere, or you could copy it from somewhere else and you put it on your computer. That is a package. That package inside of it has an application. So when you unzip it, you'll see the application inside. And that application has, of course, a program. So usually that package you open up, it opens up and it creates a folder, right? And folder, when you double click on the folder, inside of the folder, you look for a setup file or install file or executable. That executable is actually a program. So most of the time, application and programs can be used interchangeably. You could use application, you could use a program. That is okay sometimes. And those application and programs can be viewed under control panel. And those applications show up like as if you have Oracle VirtualBox installed, Microsoft Firefox, Mozilla Firefox installed, or WinZip, that is a program that you need to unzip. So these are the applications or programs that you run on your computer. Again, without these applications, you really don't need an operating system, or you don't need a computer or hardware. So with programs, when you have a program running, it comes with service. So if you install a program, let's say you install Chrome or Firefox, it automatically creates a service with it. So in order to use that, that service needs to be running to use that program, and that service is added into the Windows service. As you can see in the left hand side, as an example, I saw Windows Search, Windows Time, Windows Update. Those are the services that gets installed with your program or your application. Now, each service has a process, meaning when you start the service, it generates a process. And there are two type of process. One is a simple process that you start, and when you're done, you stop it. And there are other type of process that runs continuously in the background. Those processes are called daemons that do not stop. An example of a daemon, let's say Windows Update Manager, that runs all the time to check if there are new updates available. Windows Time or NTP service, those are, you see on the Windows machine, there is a time that shows up there. There's a calendar that shows up there. That is actually associated as a daemon. That program or that service is called daemon because they're continuously running. So remember the difference between process and daemon. Now, every time a process starts, it could create multiple threads. One thread, two thread, and also a process or daemon has multiple threads to it. Meaning, if you're starting a Firefox, which is a web browser, and you are using it, maybe you want to open up another window of Firefox, open a third window of Firefox. Every time you open up those little processes of Firefox, those are the actual threads that are started with that process. So that's how that structure works, and you need to remember this if you are really getting into a system administrative job, or if you are getting into an IT help desk job. You need to understand what each term means. So let's see what we are going to learn actually in this lesson while we actually log into our machine. We will learn how to install a program or application. We will know how to delete an application if we are done with it or if you do not want to use it any longer. Package information when it's installed, what it has, what are the properties of that package. Accessing those services. So when the package is installed, it creates a service as well. If its service needs to be up and running, and it needs to up and running at boot time, we'll talk about that as well. Then we'll talk about managing service, how you can manage, meaning stop, start, restart those services, and we'll view how we could view those processes when we run the application. Of course, as I said before, application creates the processes, or a program creates a process. So that is what we will cover in this lesson. A lot to cover, but I'll try to do as fast as I can, especially for those who already know this stuff. But of course, some of the time we do make mistakes in the term we are defining it, or we are telling people, hey, the application is not running, hey, the process is down. In order for you to troubleshoot, you really need to know what the person is talking about, right? Okay, let's go into our machine. Okay, so what we will do first of all, we will install or download a package. So open up your Internet Explorer and go to google.com. It should open up your page, google.com. If you have internet access in your virtual machine, this is your virtual machine, right? Your virtual machine should have internet access. And if you cannot get into this Google page through to the internet browser, then I would recommend that you go to your virtual box, go to your setting, select your virtual machine, go to setting, go to the network, and make sure your attached to is selected as bridge adapter, and your name is selected as, for me, it's Broadcom Net Extreme Gigabit Ethernet, meaning I am connected my machine or my PC with Gigabit Ethernet, which is a wired network. When you probably gonna see Wi-Fi if you are using a Wi-Fi, so you could drop this down and you will see the Wi-Fi. So select that Wi-Fi. So whichever means that you selected, make sure that is selected right here, and then you could click OK, and I'm sure you will be able to get online. So anyway, going back to our lesson, so we are going to download Chrome. So type download Google Chrome in Google search bar. You could use any search bar, any other. If you like Yahoo, please feel free to use Yahoo. Come down to it and you will see right here it says go to download. When you come to this page, click on download Chrome, and it will give you some licensing information, and it will tell you right here, help make Google Chrome better by automatically sending user statistic and crash reports to Google. You could leave that checked, but I like to keep it unchecked. I don't want a lot of traffic going in and out from my computer. So click accept and install. When you click on it, the Internet Explorer is going to give you a warning. Do you trust this website? If you say close, it's not going to let you download. So click on add and add this website to the trusted website. Click on add and click close. Now I would tell you go ahead and click on close and try again. Once you do that and click on, please click here to try again, and it will open up this menu little window at the bottom. It says, do you want to save this Chrome setup.exe from this website? You could say save and it will go to default folder, but click on this drop down and click on save as. So you could save it on your desktop. Click on desktop right here and leave the file name as is and click on save. Now this is going to save it and it will automatically tell you to run it. So I don't want to run it from here. Just click on close, minimize this window, and you see this is the application that is downloaded. Now remember, this is not a package now. Package we talked about, it comes in a zip folder or tar package that has multiple set of files. Now this Chrome is coming directly to us as an application and as an executable. Even if you do right click to it and go to properties, you'll see it is an executable. It says application.exe. So we are getting straight the application. See right here, type of file, it's an application. Cancel it and double click on it. When you double click, this is the way most of us install a program. Now this application is installing this program called Chrome, and it has downloaded to the temporary folder, and now it is installing Google Chrome to our list of programs. And how do we check what are the list of programs that we have installed in this computer? You could go to your start menu right here and click on control panel. In this control panel, you'll see a lot of options, a lot of settings, but I want you to go to where it says oops, I think the Google Chrome, uh, it installed it and it took me to welcome screen on Google Chrome. You don't need that. You could just close this window. And I want you to go to uninstall a program. And here you will see the list of programs that I have installed. So this is something that I have just installed. If I minimize it, you'll see the installation progress that was going in the background. It completed it. That's why it went away. And it actually created this icon right here. So let's go back to our install or uninstall program. So you'll see this is installing a package. Now when you have this package installed, this program is there. Now go ahead and double click on it, and this is going to start a process. That process can be viewed by going to this task bar, right click, task manager, and you'll see right here under apps this application is running. And when you expand this, this is the process actually it is running. This application is running this process. And this process, if I run it another one, so let's minimize it, and I will run it another one, another instance of it. So I have one and I have two. See, I have two windows. So now when I go to my task manager, you'll see I still have one application, but it gave me two processes with that. Now a lot of people would run the same application and it will generate these processes. Sometimes when you are running these processes and you trying to perform certain tasks within that process, it will create a thread. And there could be multiple thread depending on what you're doing. So you see on the background process right here, these are Google Chrome, Google Chrome, Google Chrome. Why do I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them? I'm only running two processes, right? Yeah. The two processes that you see are right here. But the threads that it has generated are these. See, that's why you should know the difference between an application, a program, a thread, a process. You could also see there are sometimes when you install a package and that application is installed, it actually creates a service to it. And that service can be accessed by going to the search window and typing services and hit enter. And you'll see these are the list of services that are created automatically whenever you install an application. Now sometimes there are applications that do not create a service because it doesn't need to be running at all times. It doesn't have to be a daemon. So that's why it does not create. So in this case, you'll see I do not have Google Chrome here. Let me make sure. I don't have anything under G. And I don't, let's see if there's anything called Chrome. No, there is not. So let's say if you are installing a bigger package, let's say if you're installing a database, if you're installing SQL, those are the bigger service. Those are bigger application. Those application creates multiple services, and those multiple services once installed are automatically added here. And then you can manage those services here as well. You could also stop and start a service. You see right here, I have a few services here. Let's go down to Windows service. See right here, Windows time. If I stop that service right now, see it's running. Let's right click and go to properties. And see it's running. If I stop the service, the time will stop, meaning it will not update the time. That's why this service has to be up and running at all times. It also says maintain date and time synchronization on all clients and service in the network. So this is Win30 time. This is also used for NTP setup, but I think you got my point. So if you want to stop or start a service, you go right click properties and stop, start, or restart. We have a listing of processes. We cover the managed services. You could manage your services right here. You could access your services. I type the services in the search menu. Let's close this. Let's close this. You could also access the services menu by clicking the window button, going to server manager, going to tools, and you'll see right here it says services. You could also click on services to access the services. So I hope this lesson serves its purpose. You understand the differences between each term, and you will be able to apply or express those terms exactly as I described.
System resource monitoring. So this is the lesson where we will cover about our system resources, what are those and how we could monitor them. So let's look at the system resources. What exactly are system resources? Anything that is added to your system that is available to run programs or run operating system, that are the system resources. And those resources are memory, CPU, hard disk, network cards, or anything that you need in your system to run your applications. So think of yourself for a second, right? As a human body. A human body needs brain, a heart, and other organs to function properly. And if you have a weaker heart or your mind is so much occupied and you're doing a lot of work, what happens? You stress out, right? You and sometimes people go through so much stress or so much problems in their life they faces depression. So those are the resources in ourself, and we need to monitor those resources, and we need to make sure what alleviate the problems that cause those stress or that cause strain on those resources. Just like that, computer works exactly like that. Computer has those organs too, and those organs are like memory, CPU, disk, and a whole bunch of other devices inside a computer. And we need to make sure that system is running healthy and happy. If you have a healthy and happy system, what will happen? Your applications, the things you're running on top of your computer, will run smoothly and happily. So, what we will learn in this lesson, we will learn how to access resource monitoring tool. You need to have a tool to monitor those resources, right? How do we monitor ourselves? Well, we have those doctors have those stethoscopes that they monitor. They have those pressure tools. They have those blood tests and so many other tools they use to check whether you are a healthy person or you're going through some problems, right? Just like that, again, Windows or any other operating system has those tools to monitor those resources, and we will learn how to access those resources. Then we will identify the intensive processes utilizing high resources. Processes are the ones that are being generated or started by the applications or the programs. They run those processes, and sometimes processes takes so much of resources. So if you're running 2 plus 2 and you hit enter, it'll bring 4. Perfect. Nice, right? But if you are doing a very high arithmetic or calculus type of work with your computer, it will take some time for it to figure it out, right? Or if you're even doing like data mining or Bitcoining, or you'll see how intensive your CPU becomes. So that's why we need to utilize resources properly so the computer can run healthy. So we will identify them, and then once we identify them, then what do we do with them? We need to manage them, right? And what are the different ways to manage it? Is you kill them, stop them, restart them, or there are different ways that we will cover. All right, let's go straight into our machine. Enough talking. So I have my machine right here. I have it open, and the first thing to access our resource tool is our through our task manager. You go to the taskbar at the bottom, you right click,
and click on Task Manager. And in the Task Manager, you have few of these tabs on top. First one is Processor, Performance, Users, Details, and Services. These are all the processes that are running. Right now, you will see all these processes using CPU and memory. So anyway, so this is one way to access the task manager. Another way to access the task manager is by you're going to do all control delete. But if you are doing all control delete on a virtual machine, what will happen, it will actually all control delete your main computer where your virtual box is running. So how you could use the all control delete is you could go to input, keyboard, and click on insert control alt delete. That's one way. Another way that you could do is if you click on control key, the right control key on your keyboard, and delete, then it will give you the same thing as all control delete. So in this menu, you'll see it has task manager. So click on task manager and it will bring up the same task manager. So this is how you could access um, your system resource monitoring tool. Now identify intensive process utilizing high resources. Now first of all, this is how you could check right off the bat that these are all the apps, all the processes that are running, and they are using this much CPU, they're using that much memory. So if you click on it, double click or single click, you'll see it will sort out the resources by the highest utilized resource all the way at the top. So the top one I have is 44 MB, which is anti-malware service executable. So these are some of the processes that are running or programs running that you could actually manage them. So if you expand them, you'll see there is another service under that program running. So you could restart, stop it, whichever you want, if it is running a very high memory or CPU. To go into detail or more in a granular way, we go into performance. And in performance, you'll see our CPU performance is right here. We have utilization is 3%. That's the speed right here. The number of sockets, the cores, the processes, the threads. Remember we talked about the threads. So we have a total of 38 processes. And each process could have one or multiple threads, depending on how it is executing this program. Then it have handles. Handles something gets more into administration. We'll cover that later on. So what the processes are, what's the caches, what time, how long it's been the system is up for. So this is about CPU utilization. If you see the graph up here going up and down, there's something wrong with it, your system. Then you go to memory, you'll see the memory utilization of all the processes or entire system. Again, if you see it going up and down, you know something is not right. Then you have Ethernet. Ethernet is the network tool which tells you what is going out, what is coming into your system. So that's how you could tell if you have high load or not. Now, how come the traffic coming in and traffic leaving is actually stressing out the system? Well, it's simple. So the more traffic comes in, the CPU has to process more resources, right? You cannot just throw something inside of your head. You cannot just keep listening, and not process it. So why would you listen, right, in the first place? But sometimes humans do that, right? We listen to someone, but we are not really listening. So, but computers we don't design computers like that to ignore it. Yes, there are certain programs we could do that. Hey, if the call comes in from this protocol, ignore it. We could do that, or it will just stop it right at the door. It won't even bring it in. So once the traffic is in, it will process and it will use CPU and it will use memory. So think of a way that how we could differentiate CPU and how we could differentiate memory. It's a very basic question, Imran. I don't need to know that. I know that already. Okay, I understand that, but please give me a minute. I'll explain you real quickly why it is important in this resource management. CPU is, if I ask you, tell me 2 plus 2, what you're going to do is, you know that you process it right away, you tell it's 4. If I ask you, tell me what is 56 times 234, then what will happen? It's gonna wait. Then what it will do is you're gonna put that in your memory. So you'll put that in your memory and then you'll do the calculation. So CPU and memory are working together. Now after a few seconds you'll get the answer. So that's how CPU and memory work together to process a certain task or certain requirement from the users. So this is about the performance. It will again, as you run different applications, you will see a lot of consumption going up and down. We covered that at users as well. You could go down to the user detail and see what exactly each program a user is running. So if I'm running, let's say in my background, I want to run, let's say Google Chrome, it will start Google Chrome right away. Let me go back to my task manager and you'll see it is starting Google Chrome right here. Now again, you're probably thinking, hey, why do we have so many Google processes? As I said, it creates threads. Each thread could it creates process. Each process could have multiple threads. So now if you wanted to stop it, which one would you stop? So you have to know. Let me go back. There are so many of them here, but let's see if we could find out by the memory. So the highest memory is using by this. Let's say if you stop that and task, it closed it, but it didn't stop in the back. See, it is still there. So each process, if it is saying like, say hello to your new Chrome browser, that is also a process within a process. That's why it's creating multiple processes. So we might have to stop a few of them to get rid of Google Chrome. Google Chrome, Google Chrome. Wow, it's starting so fast. So you see Google Chrome and task. There you go. So finally you got rid of it. So same way you could, if you wanted to do some other information, you wanted to get more details, go to details, you could find out what that process has associated, what other threads it's running. Let's get into more and more detail. But anyway, this is a very good tool to actually troubleshoot issue if your system is running slow. So someone calls you and tells you, hey, someone from, let's say, QA or development, hey, my system is running very slow because my application is running slow. So what's the first thing you do? You come to Task Manager, and that's where you come in and check. So that's why it is very important that you should know everything about the Task Manager. So I'll recommend you go through each tab: performance, process, uses, details, services, all the services running, and you will find out how you could manage that. In the service side, you also have more options. You have a start option, stop, restart option. There's so many options that are available for you, as well as if you are going to the services window itself. So if you go to services and type services here, this tab is same services as this services. Alright guys, hopefully this lesson is beneficial for you, and please try out different tabs, and if you have a question, let me know. File system corrupted, or if there is a file system corruption. Well, what is a file system? File system consists of the, the directories or folders that you create in your operating system. So there are different type of file systems. The file systems are like extension 3 in Linux, extension 4, XFS, NTFS or FAT in Windows. These are all different type of file systems that we have in operating system. A file system layout and partitions are like /var, /etc, /root, or /home. So whenever you carve a disk and you give that disk to your operating system, the first thing you have to define is what type of file system do you want for it. Then you pick a file system, for example ext4. Once that is assigned to your file system, the next step is to partition that disk or that file system in the way you want. If you leave it a default file system, then everything goes under /. But if you wanted to partition with advanced partitioning option while you're doing the installation, then you could use /var/etc or whichever the partition or mount point that you want to specify. So what happens is when the file system is corrupted, it usually gets corrupted in one of these partitions. Maybe the /var is bad, /etc or /root is bad. That's why sometimes the system administrators, the way they design the operating system is they slice each partitions differently. So this way, if there is a problem with var, it only stays with var. It doesn't impact the whole /file system. So that is one of the main reasons people pick the partitioning of your disk instead of just picking one big large partition which is slash. Now, how do we check the file system? Well, the first command that you need to run is df command. We already talked about it. Df command tells you what type of file system you have and where that file system is being partitioned and where is it mounted. Also, you could run the command fdisk with -l option to see all the disks that you have in your system, and also each partition of that disk. If your system is running on LVM, then you could run many LVM commands like LV display, PV display, the LV block. So there are many commands that you could run to see your file system. Now let's get into troubleshooting steps. So you know your system is running slow, or you have identified that you have a file system corruption in one of your partitions. So what do? You first check the var log messages to confirm that it is actually the file system, and you will see a lot of error messages that will come up in your var log messages that will say that bad block on this sector on this disk, and you need to fix it, or you need to run fsck. You will see that in your var log message. So var log messages or any type of log like var log syslog are very, very important in a system structure to identify where the problem is. Then once you know that you do have a file system problem or a corruption, and you identified which partition that file system is corrupted, then you run the command fsck. This is the command fsck, which stands for file system check. This command has been used with many different Linux as well as Solaris or Unix flavors as well. It's still there. It works perfectly. There are some of the new commands that are in there for different file system. Maybe XFS file system will run XFS repair, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So anyway, we run the fsck on block device, which is dev sda. We will not run on the mount point, meaning these are the mount point, which is /var. We cannot run fsck on /var. We have to run on the actual mount where it's coming from, the source. That would be the block device. Then make sure we are unmounting the file system before we are running fsck, because if you run fsck on a mounted file system or mounted partition that is already mounted on var etc, it will give you an error message and it will say you cannot mount it because that file system is busy. That is why one of the things a lot of people get into trouble saying when they are trying to do the cleanup of the corrupted file system, and they run fsck and it doesn't run, and then they're sitting and trying to find out why it is not running. Read the error message, what it says, and it will tell you why it's not running, because it cannot run that command on the mounted file system. So let's get into our Linux machine. I have already opened a terminal to my Linux machine, and the first thing we'll see is we'll see the layout of our file system, and for that we'll run the command df-h. H is for human readable option. You could pick any option you want. If you pick, I suppose, T, that will also tell you what type of file system it is. It is XFS, temp file system, or ext file system. So let's just run df-h. And you will see there are different file systems are also there as tempfs. These are just a temporarily. This is not the actual file systems. So what you could do is you could do df minus h and grep minus v to exclude tmpfs. So now you know exactly how many partitions you have. You have two partitions. One is mounted on slash, which is just slash on the root level, and the second one is dev sd1, which is mounted for boot. Boot is usually mapped on a regular block device. It does not get mapped on the LVM. So up here you'll see this is the LVM. It always starts with dev member. So we identified it. Now in your system, if you are working in a corporate environment or any of your system, you're probably gonna see more mounted points. You probably have slash var, slash etc, slash opt, slash sbin, or slash temp, whatever the partition you have. It's okay. I'm not gonna go into every one of them, but I'm just saying you're probably gonna see a lot more mount points on your system. If you don't, that is fine. But let's come in here and to cover this, I have actually attached a disk through my virtual machine, and I am going to mount that disk first just to show you how we could run fsck. So that disk, I will do a df minus k, fdisk minus k, fdisk minus l, and here if you notice I have a new disk which I have already partitioned. I just wanted to add that I have already partitioned that new disk. So if you notice right here, I have a disk sdev sdb, which is 5 gig. This is what I got it from my virtual machine, and I have already partitioned that. Now I have to mount that somewhere, so I will mount it in one of the directory that I have created earlier. So that directory is in my slash directory, which is, I named it spare data. So I'm gonna mount that slash mount sd dev sdb1 to spare data. Okay, now it is mounted. Now when I run df minus h, of course I will grep everything, all the temporary file system, and now you will see I have basically two file systems. One is SDA and one is SDB. They are the same file system, XFS. I wanted to, now I have discovered that this file system, or this partition point, is corrupted. Now I need to fix that or clean any bad sectors that is on this partition. So I will run the command fsck space slash spare data. Now the reason I'm putting that here, because I want you to know that it will not work, because I am trying to run fsck on the mount point, which does not work, and it will tell you it's a directory while trying to open this. So we don't do on the directory, we do on the block device, as I mentioned before. So I will do fsck dev sdb1. Now I'm running this, it will still fail. Why? Because as I mentioned in my last part, it says unmount file system and then run fsck. Unmounting means it is already mounted on this directory, so that's why it's not going to work. But I will go ahead and run it to see the error message. Okay, so when I ran it, it says fsck from utility Linux so and so, and the version and the date, and it says dev sdb1 is mounted. E2 fsck cannot continue, so aborting. Basically this E2 fsck is a newer command, but for fsck, I'm sure fsck probably have a link to this. This is a new command that you could run. Anyway, we could talk about new commands later, but right now our focus is to find out why we cannot run fsck on dev sdb1, and we know we cannot because it is mounted. So what do we have to do? I have to unmount it. Umount The command to unmount is umount slash spare data. That's the partition, or that's the mount point I have. So I'll run that command, and now it is unmounted. I will do df minus h again, and you'll see it is not there. Now I could run fsck sdb1 by hitting up arrow keys, which will repeat all the commands that were ran earlier. I hit enter. As soon as I hit enter, it says fsck from utility so and so, and version date, and says dev sdb1 clean. And it has some of its calculations, and the files is telling you how many files it has, how many blocks it has. Since this is only 5 gig and it went pretty fast, and there is no files or data on that spare disk right now, that is why it went pretty fast. And you see you got the result right away. If you have that, let's say 100 gig of disk, and it has so much data on it, then it could take a long time to run. It will go into it and it will check everything that it has to check on for the bad blocks, and it will fix it. So it's also possible while it is fixing it, it will ask you, hey, I found the fix for this. Do you want me to fix that bad block? And you will have to enter Y to say yes, go ahead. So one thing is you could keep saying Y and keep entering in on the prompt, or you could just simply say fsck minus Y. It means whatever that you're going to ask me, my answer is yes. So then you will hit enter, and it will go through all the file system again, and it will clean up. Now, next thing I wanted to talk about, which is one of the biggest thing a lot of people experience, is they say, okay, my file system is corrupted, but it is root file system. Now, how do I clean that when it is mounted? If I unmount it, it's not going to let me mount, because that's where I am running my entire operating system. So how can I do that? Well, that's a very good question if that is coming in your mind. Many times we have that issues, we cannot clean up. So the only way we could do that is we have to boot our machine through the CD-ROM. We have to mount our CentOS or Red Hat CD to our Linux machine right here, and we have to boot from that CD-ROM. And then once it boots, it will give us the rescue option. We'll pick the rescue option, and then we can fix this issue if there are any bad sectors on the root or any partition that cannot be mounted while the operating system is running. Now, how can I do that? So for that, you cannot use a putty session. For that, you have to actually console into the machine, because you will be rebooting the machine, and you will be bringing down all the network connections and all the multi-user environment. So I will go into my Linux machine through console. Okay, I am logged into console now. I have to attach the device, the ISO image of my CentOS. So go to device, optical drives, and choose disk image. Once I go in here, it will tell me where the file is. I'll say desktop. It is on my desktop, and the file is CentOS. Click open. If you want to confirm it has attached, you could go back to devices, optical drives, and you see the check mark is right here. So it means it is mounted. So now all I have to do is do a reboot and hit enter. When it reboots, you see in the back I have the putty session, and it says it lost the server unexpectedly. That's fine. Now I am at this section where it says install CentOS 7. You probably have seen that if you have recently done the installation. So install CentOS, perfect. You don't want it to do that, because this is if you are doing the install from scratch. Test this media and install CentOS. It's the same thing, but it will test it again. Our option is troubleshooting. I'll go in and hit enter in troubleshooting. Now, the next option is install CentOS in basic graphical mode. Again, we are not installing, we are doing rescue. So come down to the selection, to the option where it says rescue a CentOS system. If you are using Red Hat, it would say rescue a Red Hat system. So hit enter. Now it's basically starting up the operating system, not actual the operating system, but the system that is actually on the disk that is used to go through the installer. See, it says starting installer. Well, in fact, it's not doing the installer, so don't be alarmed by that. Now, here we are in the rescue mode. Read it very carefully. It says the rescue environment will now attempt to find your Linux installation and mount it under the directory /mount/sysimage. You can then make any changes required to your system. Choose one to proceed with this step. You can choose to mount your file system read-only instead of read-write by choosing 2. If for some reason this process does not work, choose 3 to skip directly to a shell. So if I pick 1, then it will mount my file system, which is root to /mnt sysimage. So suddenly I lost the screen. But anyway, so I don't want to mount that. If I mount it, then I cannot run fsck, which I will be in the same situation. I don't want to mount it as read-only, so I will just skip straight to the shell. So I will pick option 3 and hit enter. Now I have the shell, so I run df-h command, and you will see none of the file system will show up here. That actually the partitions that we have in when the actual operating system runs. So it's this, the one that you see right now, it is actually coming straight from the CD. So you know that already your file system that you need to clean actually lives on dev sda. So you will run fsck -y if you want to, dev sda1, because you have to specify the entire partition for every partition that you have on the disk. Now you hit enter, and it says fsck from utility 2.23.2 sbin fsck xfs file system. It means I cannot run fsck for the partition that lives on, or that has assignment of xfl file system. So I have to run the command fsck.xfs. Now run dev sda1. Now, if you wish to check the consistency of XFL file system or repair a damaged file system, see this. Now, it's saying, now go to this command. This is the one I was talking about. Now, you will have to run this command instead of fsck. So now you run a dev sda1. Hit enter. And it's going through all the phases, phase 1 through 6, and it's actually resetting the content, checking the blocks, and it's verifying, and it says verify and correct link counts, and at the end, done. So basically it went through the whole lot. If you had a big disk space with a lot of data on it, then it will take a long time, as I mentioned. So now, since it's mounted, it's cleaned, your corruption is cleared on your file system, now you could simply do reboot. But before you do the reboot, just unmount your optical drive so it won't start off the ISO image. So force unmount and hit reboot. It will reboot, and it will come back as clean disk and no corruption. You could also check in the var log messages. Anyway, so this is about this lecture, file system corruption. Then you have to follow these steps one by one. Again, if you have any questions, please send me a message, and I'll be happy to answer anything that you have in mind. Hello everyone, and welcome to our lab setup section. This is a section where we are going to actually set up our lab. A lab is where we are going to perform our certain troubleshooting tasks, because this training is all about troubleshooting, right? And we need some type of operating system, specifically Linux, where we could perform troubleshootings. So how we are going to set up a lab. So this is what I'm going to cover in this section. The first thing we will do is we will cover the virtual environment. What exactly a virtual environment is, how a virtual machine runs on a physical machine, how multiple virtual machines can run on one physical machine. Then I will cover the Oracle VirtualBox, meaning there are so many other virtualization technology, for example, VMware, Microsoft Hyper-V, Citrix virtualization, Red Hat virtualization, there are so many of them. I am picking Oracle VirtualBox because it's very simple, straightforward. If you prefer any other virtualization technology, please be my guest to use that. Then the next topic we'll cover is about installing Oracle VirtualBox. I will take you to the website of Oracle VirtualBox. We will together download the software. Once the download is completed, we'll go through the installation and the configuration of Oracle VirtualBox. That Oracle VirtualBox will allow us to give us a platform where we could run virtual machines. So the first next step would be is to create our first virtual machine once we have the Oracle VirtualBox set up. That virtual machine will be set up for our Linux environment. So the next step would be is to install Linux on that virtual machine. And the Linux that I have picked, the flavor of the Linux is CentOS. Now CentOS is similar to Red Hat, and Red Hat has the biggest market share in corporate environment. That is why I am picking Red Hat or CentOS operating system for this entire training session. So, one thing I do want to mention, if you already have a lab setup, or if you already have a machine, a virtual machine or physical machine that is running Linux, whether it is Ubuntu, CentOS, SUSE, or any other, and that you want to prefer to use it for this entire training session, then just simply skip this section because you don't need to set up the lab, you don't need to set up the Oracle VirtualBox, you already have a Linux machine. If you do not, then simply go through all these steps and let's get started.
In this video, we will go through our lab designing, the lab that we need to practice all the videos and lectures throughout this course. So we have two options to design our lab. Option one is that you have a computer, a desktop or a laptop at home. That computer could either be running Windows operating system or Mac operating system. Then what do? You install a virtualization of software on it. So this way you don't have to lose the main host operating system that is right now running on your computer. The virtualization software allows you to run a multiple operating system on top of your main operating system. So the virtualization software, there are many of them. The main two ones are VMware Player and Oracle VirtualBox. These are the two free virtualization software that you could use to set up your lab. Once you have any one of those two downloaded and installed, then we'll go ahead and create our virtual machine on it. That virtual machine will allow us to create and install our Linux operating system on top of that. So that's our simple first option. The second option that you could use is the same way that you have a desktop or a laptop at home running Windows or Mac. And then instead of installing a virtualization software on your computer, you could actually create an account on one of the cloud services that are out there. The cloud services could be either AWS or Google Cloud or any of the cloud services that could give you a free account or free access to create virtual machines with the resources that you need. So once you have that, then we should follow the same way. We'll create a virtual machine on cloud services, and then we will install the Linux operating system over that virtual machine. So these are the two options you have. You could pick either one for this course and any of the one will work. But for if you wanted to follow exactly step by step that I'm going through, that I'm going to pick option one. But I have provided instructions for every steps that I have listed here.
What is Oracle VirtualBox? And of course, why do we need to know about VirtualBox? Well, for this course, you do need to install CentOS Linux operating system on your computer, and there are two ways you could install it. One, you could remove the existing operating system that you have on your computer, or you could install VirtualBox on top of your existing Windows operating system or Mac, and then you could install CentOS, so you this way you won't lose anything. So basically, VirtualBox is a free and open source hypervisor for x86 computers currently being developed by Oracle Corporation. It installs on your existing Intel or AMD based computers, whether they are running Windows, Mac, Linux, or Solaris. It extends the capabilities of your existing computer so that it can run multiple operating systems on one hardware at the same time. Let's see how it works. So you have when the hardware layer, and then on top of it you install the operating system. Of course, it could be any one you have that is Windows or Mac, and then you install Oracle VirtualBox. It's just a program, a software that you install on your machine like any other software that you would install. Once you have installed Oracle VirtualBox, then you could install Linux on it as a separate small version of operating system. You could have Windows on it, or you could have Mac on it. So this VirtualBox allows you to have multiple operating system on the same hardware. In this lecture, we are going to cover the Oracle VirtualBox. We will go through the download and the installation of VirtualBox. Now, as I said previously, the Oracle VirtualBox is is a virtual environment which allows you to run a multiple operating system on the same hardware. There are other virtual platform that is available out there that you could use. You don't have to go with VirtualBox if you don't like it. You could use VMware Player Workstation, as well as other open source virtual environment. But anyway, I would prefer if you stick with Oracle VirtualBox, so this way we could go through the course together. Alright, so I will go open up my Firefox browser so I could download the VirtualBox software. You could use any browser you like. Then I'm going to the Google page, and in the Google page, I'm searching for Oracle VirtualBox. When you click on it, you're going to see the first link as Oracle VM VirtualBox. So you could click on it and then go to download, or you could go straight to the download page. Alright, on the download page, you're going to see the section where it says VirtualBox version platform packages. Now, depending on when you are downloading this VirtualBox, the version will be higher, maybe 1, 2, or whichever the version at that time you're downloading. It doesn't matter. Don't be confused. Oh, the one I am showing you is 6.0 and the one you are seeing is a different version. Basically, what we want at the end is a virtual platform that we could run our guest instances or guest operating system on it. Anyway, if you are using the Windows as your main host where you will run the Linux CentOS as a VM, then pick Windows host. If you are using OS X host, meaning if you are using Apple, then you could use this one. For Linux, for Solaris, for other operating systems, you could pick depending on your requirement of your actual operating system. Go ahead and click on Windows host because I am running Windows host, and that's where I'm going to run my VirtualBox. Now here it is asking me to save the file, and you could click, but I'm not going to click to save the file because I have already saved it to save some time. So if you have not saved it previously. So go ahead and click on this, and it will ask you to the location to save it. So I'm gonna cancel it since, as I said, I have already saved it. All right, I have my VirtualBox executable saved on my desktop, and here is the executable. All I have to do is go ahead and double click so it could start the installation. So once you double click on it, it will ask you, do you want to run this file? Click on run. Okay, now the wizard has started. It says welcome to the Oracle VM VirtualBox 6.0.14 setup wizard. The setup wizard will install Oracle VM VirtualBox on your computer. Click next to continue or cancel to exit the setup wizard. Go ahead and click next. Select the way you want features to be installed. So by default, the VirtualBox application has been selected, and the other features that comes with it, I'm going to leave everything at default. And it also tells you the version installing the feature requires 227 megabyte that you should have on your disk. So go ahead and click next. Please choose from the options below. Create start menu entry, create a shortcut on desktop, create a shortcut on quick launch bar, register file association. I like them all, leave them default, except I don't like create a shortcut in quick launch bar. So I'm going to uncheck it. Again, that's my preference. You could leave all of them selected. Click next. Network warning, network interface. Installing the Oracle VM VirtualBox networking feature will reset your network connection and temporarily disconnect you from the network. Proceed with installation. So that's fine. So make sure you are not connected to the internet, or if you are, make sure you're not doing any type of work that you will lose. So go ahead and click yes, and click install to begin the installation. Install. I am going to fast forward at this part because I don't want you to wait. I don't want to waste your time. So I'm going to just simply fast forward. Okay, so the Oracle VM VirtualBox installation is complete. Um, you can leave the check mark so it'll start it back up, and you could click on Finish. Congratulations, you have completed the download and the installation of Oracle VirtualBox. Now the next step is to create a test virtual machine, and then of course we will go ahead and do the actual operating system install on that virtual machine.
Hello everyone. In this video, I will show you how to create a virtual machine. Now, before we get into creating it, let's first understand what is a virtual machine. As per Wikipedia, a virtual machine, or in short, VM, is the virtualization or emulation of a computer system. Virtual machines are based on computer architectures and provide the functionality of a physical computer. Now, let's put it in simple words. A virtual machine is a program on your computer that acts as if it were a completely separate computer. You can run different operating systems, software, and applications on that virtual machine while using your main computer as normal. It's like having a computer inside of your computer, allowing you to do different things at the same time. It's just that simple. Now, one thing please do remember that a virtual machine is referred as a guest, and the main computer where it runs on is called a host. So, again, in this video, we are going to go through starting up our Oracle VirtualBox application, and we'll create a new virtual machine. Now, think of creating a new virtual machines as if just like you are visioning HP or Dell manufacturer. They manufacture a computer, and while it's going through the manufacture process, it goes through an assembly line where the technicians or people who are working at the assembly line are actually putting in CPU. The other person put in memory, then they add a hard disk, then they add network cards, the motherboard, and so on. They put the whole thing together, and it becomes one computer. Now, just like that, that person, those people who are assembly on the assembly line, now you are now taking over that role, and you're creating a virtual machine. So, in this virtual machine creation, you have a computer, for example, and in that computer, you're gonna actually, I mean, not actually, but virtually, you will be adding a CPU to it. You will be adding a memory, adding a hard disk, or you'll be adding a network card. And all of that will be done on the virtualization software. And think of yourself as an engineer who are putting all these things together. All right. Now let's get the fun part begin. Now I'm gonna start up my Oracle VirtualBox. I'll go into my programs and type Oracle VM VirtualBox, and let's start it up. Okay, so this is the Oracle VM VirtualBox portal or application. And now we'll go ahead and click on New. And here we're gonna type a Linux lab because we will be installing a Linux operating system, so it's better that we go with the similar name so we could recognize it easily. Then the folder, this is a default folder of the Linux machine or this virtual machine where all the files will be saved. We'll leave that as is. The next one is ISO image. Now, if you have already downloaded the Linux ISO image, then you could go ahead and click on drop down and then select where is it downloaded. Now, since we do not have the downloaded image yet, which we will do in the next video, so we will leave that as is. Now look at that. This Oracle VirtualBox is smart enough that it picked the type for you, Linux, because it recognized from the name Linux that I am installing Linux operating system on it. So if you are going to do, let's say, Windows, then you could, of course, change it if you want. Here you have Microsoft Windows, and then you will select whatever the version of Windows. But now, of course, our main topic or focus is Linux, so we'll go ahead and select a Linux, and we leave the version as the default version that it has selected as 64-bit. Okay, beautiful. Next one is unattended install. Now, if you wanted to install the Linux operating system unattended, then you will configure this part. But we are not doing that, so we will leave that as is. Then let's go to hardware. Hardware, here we have base memory, which is the RAM of your computer. Now, again, you are the person who are going to put in all these peripherals in that virtual machine. So we want 2 gig, so we will slide this to the right, so it will 1024 can become 12048, which is equal to 2 gig. Okay, processor, we just need one. That's perfectly fine. Now let's go to hard disk. Hard disk right here, create a virtual hard disk now. Yes, that's what we want. And the name of the hard disk will be the same name as the name of your VM.vdi. Okay, leave that as default. The size it selected is 8. Let's change it to 2020 gig. Okay, now you're probably thinking, why am I going with 20 gig? Why not 40? Why not 60? Or why not 8? Well, first of all, the version of Linux operating system we are going with, the latest one, requires at least 20 gig. The older versions of Linux maybe required lesser disk space, but this one requires at least 20. Now, you could go with higher if you want, if you have more disk space and you're going to be doing a lot of work in the Linux machine. I don't mind. You could go with 40, 60, or even 100. Okay, knock yourself out. Okay, then this second option is use an existing virtual hard disk file. So if you already have had created a VM before and you wanted to attach its disk to this VM, you could do that by selecting this option. Now, if you do not want to create a virtual disk at all, then you could select this option. But of course, we do want to install operating system and it needs disk for it, so we will give we'll go with the first option. All right, now go ahead and click finish. Okay, now you'll see this is the virtual machine we created, and on the right hand side, all the specification that we have in this configure in this virtual machine. General just give you the information about the name, operating system. The system one gives you the memory of that we have assigned to this virtual machine, and also give you the information about the CPU and all that stuff. Then storage, we pick 20 gig, it's right here. Audio, leave it default. Network. So network right now is telling you that it's a NAT, which is only the communication between your virtual machine and your main host computer. We want this virtual machine to go out on the internet. So for that purpose, we will change it to, let's go to setting and go to network, and from NAT to bridge adapter. This one will allow you to go to the internet. Now, of course, for this course, you don't need to go to the internet. That's fine. But if you want to, then you will change to bridge adapter. Otherwise, you could leave it as a NAT as it was. Okay, click OK. USB, leave a default. Shared folder, description, leave everything as is. Now you have completed the virtual machine creation. Congratulations. All right, the next step is that we will download the Linux operating system ISO image, and we will attach that ISO image to this virtual machine so we could go through the installation. I'll see you in the next video. In this video, we will cover the download and installation of Linux operating system. The flavor is CentOS 9 Stream. Now, if you wanted to go with the CentOS version 8 or 7, then you could just simply go back. I have included in this course the installation of CentOS 8 and 7. All right, so if you decided that you wanted to go with CentOS version 9 Stream, then stick around. So what I'm going to cover, we will create a virtual machine, we'll download CentOS 9 Stream ISO, and we will install CentOS 9 Stream. So going back to our lab diagram, we have our laptop or desktop running either Windows or Mac OS. We have installed virtualization software, VMware Player or Oracle VirtualBox. Once again, I am going with Oracle VirtualBox throughout this course. If you want to go with VMware Player, that is perfectly fine. All right, now what we will do is we will go ahead and create a virtual machine on our virtualization software, and then we will download a CentOS 9 Stream ISO image, and then of course, then what we will do, we'll install the Linux operating system on top of that virtual machine. And what is the version of Linux? Yes, that would be CentOS version 9 Stream. All right, so the very first thing is we have to download, so we have to create a virtual machine. So let's go to our Oracle VirtualBox. And here you have all the virtual machines that you created earlier. That's fine. You could ignore that. Click New and put in CentOS 9 Stream. And type Linux, leave it default. I want you to change the version from Red Hat to right here up here where it says Linux 2.6, 3.x, 4.x, 64-bit. Yes. Click on that. Click Next. Now is the memory, which is 1 gig. Leave it default. Next. All right, recommended size of the hard disk 8 gig. We'll change that in the next step. Click Create. Hard disk file type VDI, leave it default. Storage on physical disk dynamically allocated, leave it default. Click Next. Now change the disk size from 8 gig to 20 gig or 30 gig or 50 gig, whatever the disk space that you wanted to specify. Click Create. Okay, now the virtual machine has been created. One more thing you have to do, go to Settings, go to Network, and from attached to NAT, change it to bridge adapter, which will allow us to connect to the internet. Click OK. All right, so now our virtual machine is created. What's the next step? The next step is to download CentOS 9 Stream ISO image, and that we have to download from their website. So let's go to your favorite browser. I'm gonna go to Firefox, and let's go to your search engine and type download CentOS 9 and click on the first link and click on CentOS stream, and by default it'll give you the 9 version. Click on x86 underscore 64 for 64-bit operating systems. It will start to download. This download could take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes depending on your network speed. I have already downloaded this earlier to save some time. If you are downloading it for the first time, pause the video and let's come back once you have it fully downloaded. All right, so let's assume you have it downloaded and you put it on your desktop. All right, so let's go to our virtual machine that we created earlier. Right here, CentOS 9 stream. Go ahead and click on Start. All right, it will ask you if you have the DVD, the media inserted into the DVD drive, which we don't. We have an ISO image. So we'll pick this option, which is the folder option. And here you could go to Add, click on Add. These are the few ones that I attached earlier. If you don't see them, don't worry about it. Just click on Add and go to the location where you have CentOS Stream 9 downloaded. So I have downloaded right here on my desktop. Click on it and click Open. And here you could click on Choose. Once it is done, then click on Start. Now this is going to start. It has already attached the CentOS Stream 9 and it has already started. So right here you'll see two options: install CentOS Stream 9 or test this media. So click inside and hit up arrow key and hit enter to start the installation. Now if you want to release your mouse, right now your mouse is trapped inside the window. If you want to release, just simply click on the right control key, which will release your mouse. Now, this was the installation of CentOS 9 Stream on Oracle VirtualBox. If you are doing it on VMware Workstation, simply go to VMware Workstation, and here you could create a new virtual machine real quickly. I will install the operating system later. Linux, it's not 7, and this time we're doing 9. So if you don't see the 9 version on this, that's fine. You could pick the generic one, which is Linux or other Linux 5.x kernel 64-bit. Select this one, click Next. The name, let's pick CentOS 9. Next. The disk size, let's pick 20. Store virtual disk as a single file, click Next. Customize the hardware if you wanted to change anything. Yes, we want to. So instead of 768, we wanted to put it 1024, which is 1 gig of memory. Then processor, you don't need 2, you could change it to 1, that's fine. Then network adapter, you need bridge adapter. Good. And everything looks good. Click close and click finish. Once that is done, now I want you to go back again, right click and edit setting. And here you could go to CD DVD and click here use ISO image, browse, and then go to your location of your CentOS stream, attach, open, and it will start the installation process. And it will come to the page just like what I have here. So let's cancel it. Let's cancel it. Just what I have it here. All right, so let's see you have done both Oracle VirtualBox or if you're going with VMware Workstation. Let's minimize this in the back. Let's close these little notifications. All right, welcome to CentOS Stream 9. This is the region, the language, location. It will pick by default where you are. Click continue. All right, keyboard is English US. Installation source, local media. That's fine. Installation destination. Let's click on it and it will pick the 20 gig. Already selected it. That's fine. Good. Just click done. Language support, English, United States. Software installation, server with GUI. Yes, you want the software, the installation to have a GUI as well. K-dump. This is the kernel dump. In case kernel crashes, it will dump or the logs. Do you want it enabled? Yes. Date and time, America, New York. I am in New York, so it is picking it based on my location. It's tracing that. Network and host name. Let's click on that. And the host name, you could pick my Linux VM and click apply. As soon as you click apply, you'll see this will change from localhost to the name that you are typing. All right, it's applied. Good. Ethernet, make sure it is on, it is connected. It will give an IP. Perfect. Click done. All right, now security profile, leave it as is. Root password, this is the password. The root is the most powerful user on your system, just like an administrator on your system. So put in the password that you will remember, please. Confirm. All right. Lock root account? No. Allow root SSH login with password? Yes. Pick this one. And it says the password fails the dictionary. It is based on a dictionary word. You will have to press done twice to confirm. Okay, I want to keep it weak. It's okay if it's based on dictionary. So in order for me to have this installation to take that password, I have to click done twice. One, two. All right, so that is done. And now let's go ahead and click on begin installation. All right, so this is going to create the file system and it is going to create the partitions, the swap space, all that we defined with automatic configuration. Then it will gather all the packages that it needs to install. Then it will go to the package installation, followed by the post installation configuration. Now, this could take anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes, depending on the speed of your system. So once the installation is completed, and I will fast forward from this point, I'll see you when it's done. Okay, so installation has been completed. Go ahead and click on Reboot System. All right, so now the system is back online. You could close this notification, and this is asking for a setup. Welcome to CentOS Stream 9 setup will guide you through making an account and enabling some features that will help, which will have you up and running in no time. Let's click on Start Setup. Location services, you could leave it disabled. Click Next. Connect your online accounts. If you have it, connect it. If not, just simply skip it. All right, let's create an account. That is a regular account. So put in your full name. So I'm going to put mine, which is Imran Afzal. And the username, it is picking my first name and last name, but I wanted to change it to my first name initial and last name, full last name. All right, and then let's go ahead and click on next. Password. You could pick the same password as you created for root, or if you're picking a new one, please remember that as well. All right, click next. Password is weak. That's fine. You could change it to strong. I would recommend that if you're doing that in production. All right, setup is complete. Start using CentOS Stream. Beautiful. All right, welcome to CentOS Stream. If you want to learn your way around, check out the tour. If you want to take a tour, please go ahead and take it if you're using it for the first time. But for the lab purpose, we'll just say no thanks. So right here is our desktop. You could go to activities and click right here, this little icon. This is for the terminal. This is going to go open up our terminal, which we will be using to run the commands, all the Linux commands, and learn everything that we need to know about Linux. All right, so this completes our installation for CentOS 9 Stream. Congratulations.
Server is not reachable, or many times people will refer to as a server is not pingable or I cannot connect to the server. So now let's get into some technical side of the things. We covered most of the conceptual things. So now let's get into where we could actually run the commands and actually troubleshoot by logging into the server. So when you get an issue where someone reports that server is not reachable, there are a few set of rules that you have to follow that I'm going to show you one by one. First thing is you have to do is you have to ping the destination server, the server that is having the issue. Ping is the command that is built in within your Linux operating system in any flavor that you have in Linux. Ping comes pre-built or pre-installed in your server. So you have to bring up your computer and run the command ping followed by the server name. So let's do that. As an example, I have my Linux machine up and running, and it's my Linux machine name is my first Linux VM. Now, the first thing I wanted to do is, let's say someone says the server A cannot connect to server B. So that what is the name of the server? Of course, they will give you the information. The server B is XYZ. So in our example, I will do is I'll ping the Google. Ping google.com. So this is the first thing you have to do from your source. This is your source computer, and you are going to your target or destination computer, which is Google. So you go ahead and run ping google.com, and as you could see, you are getting the result back, which means 64 bytes from this, and it is coming back and it's going and doing an ICMP protocol, and it's going to Google and asking, hey, are you there? Are you there? And Google server comes back and says, yes, I'm here. I'm here, and you are getting a response back. Perfect. So that is the first thing you have to do. Now going back to our set of steps, second is if the server name is not pingable. So you run the ping command and you are not getting a ping return. So what do? Let's look at our machine again, and we'll pick something, we'll make up something that will not going to pick. So I will do ping Google. Instead of .com, I'll do google.cp. I know google.cp doesn't exist. It doesn't have a server, or there is no host or DNS entry for it. So I'll go ahead and ping it, and it says, ping google.cp name or service not found. So now the next thing is you have to do is, it means that there is your name, the DNS entry for google.cp does not exist. So you have to find the IP address of this destination server. So if the server name is not pingable, then ping the destination server IP address. And how do we find the IP address? There are a couple of ways to find the IP addresses. Of course, first you go into your own documents, go and find out what is the IP address of the server that is down, and then you go in and ping the IP address. Now, let's say if we know the IP address of Google, so and we need to find out the IP address of the Google, we'll do nslookup. nslookup is another command or tool or utility that tells you or that translates you hostname to IP address. So let's do google.com and hit enter. You'll see it will return the name of the server and the IP address of the server. Okay, so now you go ahead and ping 172.217.10.14. Hit enter, and now you see it is pinging that server by the IP address. If you do the same thing to google.cp.com, then google.cp only, then you'll see that it is saying that I'm going to find the DNS information for that, but I cannot find it. It says server can find google.cp. Yes, because of course it doesn't exist. So let's go back to our set of instructions. Ping the destination server by IP. We did ping it, and it was pingable, so it means there is something wrong with the DNS. So now it says if IP is pingable, then it means something wrong with the name resolution issue. So what the next step that we need to do? If we could ping from the IP but we cannot ping through the name, then what we need to do is first we need to check the etc host file. Etc host file is the file, a local file in a Linux, or there's also etc file in Windows as well, but the path is not etc. So that file is actually keeps the record locally of a host name and translate it to the IP address. So if I do cat host, you'll see there is an IP address of my local host, meaning my local computer. If I ping localhost, you see it is pinging my local host with that IP address. So I will go in and I'll check, do I have an entry for the server that I'm pinging in my etc host? If it's not there, then what do? Next file you need to check is etcresolve.conf. Is your server really has a DNS that is actually going and resolving it? So to verify it, you do cat etcresolve.conf file. This is where the DNS server information is saved. So we are telling my machine, which is this machine, that every time you need to go out and resolve a host name with an IP address, then you need to go to name server as 192.168.1.1. This is the name, or this is the IP address of my modem or my router. This IP or this modem also serves as my DNS server, my local DNS server. So it is telling it every time you need to resolve something, go to this. So I have verified it, it is there. Now, every time when you need to resolve from hostname to IP address, there is another file in your Linux machine. Do you remember the file? Okay, if you don't, the next file you have to check is called etcnsswitch.conf file. What does that file does? That file is actually tells your computer, hey, whenever you need to resolve hostname to IP address, I will tell you to first go to the DNS server or go to etc file, or wherever you have to go, I will tell you where to look for. So let's see what cat etcnsswitch.conf file says. When you go in here, you'll see, if you go scroll up, right here it says the password file is the local file. Of course, this is not what we're looking for. Here we are saying that we are looking for host. If I need to resolve a host name with an IP address, where should I go? And my computer, my server says, hey, first you need to go to files, which is what? My etc host file. First go into that file and see if you could find the hostname to IP address. If you cannot find it, then the next thing you need to do is to go to DNS. Okay, I will go to DNS. Now, who is my DNS? Where should I go to ask how to resolve hostname to IP address? The DNS server to find it is where? It's right here, etcresolve.conf. So go etcresolve.conf. We already covered that, and that is where it will go to find the hostname and IP address. Coming back to our set of instructions, if IP is pingable, then it means something is wrong with your name and resolution. So you will check all these files. Next thing, if IP is not pingable, so you pinged with the server name, you pinged with the IP, nothing is working, you cannot ping. Then what could be the issue? Well, ping another server by the name and then by IP. Maybe the server you're trying to work with is actually down. So regardless you ping with the host name or with the IP server, it is actually down. So what you do is you could try to ping another server in the network to see if you could reach other servers. So first try with the name and then try with the IP address. So I'll go in and I will do is I will ping, instead of Google, let's say I'll ping yahoo.com. And I'll say, hey, yes, I could ping it. Perfect. So it means there is nothing wrong with me or my computer. My computer can ping other computers or other servers. There's definitely something with the Google or your destination server. Next step is check if your server has an IP address. So if you cannot ping another server, meaning if you're trying to ping another server, let's say yahoo.com, and you cannot ping that, then then definitely something with your own server. So check if your own server has an IP address. How to check that? You run the command ifconfig. The ifconfig command is the command that gives you the IP address of your own computer. Yes, you do have an IP address, and yes, you could get onto the network, so which you have confirmed already. That is perfect. Now the next step is ping your gateway and modem IP. So what is my gateway? So most of the time you could find your gateway information by doing netstat-rnv. When you hit enter, you'll see the gateway is right here. So now the next step is see if you could go to your gateway, and gateway is the one that actually is going to let you go out and ping other server. So I'm going to go ping 192.168.1.1. Hit enter. Nice. Okay, I could ping my gateway. That is perfect. So now the question is, if I cannot ping my gateway, or even if I could ping my gateway, but I could still cannot go outside, or I cannot ping Google, or I cannot ping Yahoo, then what? Then the last thing that I have listed here is check physical cable connection. Yes, it does happen. It happened, and I've seen it a few times. You need to go to your own server, this server that you're logged in. By the way, you won't be able to log into this server anyway if your cable is disconnected. But I'm just saying, just in case, let's say if you are connected on the console, or it's your laptop, you're logging in straight to your laptop, then check the physical connection or check your Wi-Fi network whether it's working or not. Along the same line, going one step back, when you are pinging your gateway, you also have to verify that your gateway traffic or your routing is also set correctly. How do you check? You run the command netstat-rnv, hit enter. You need to make sure all the traffic going to wherever it's going, because you see right here the first column says traffic, wherever are you going, whichever the IP address you're going. Every time you have to go outside, you have to go through the gateway from 192.168.1.1. That's what it's telling it, and it's telling it gateway. Just think of gateway as actually the gate to go outside. So when you have that set, then it means you are all good. If you do not have that set, it means you do have an IP address, but somehow you cannot go outside because you do not have a route. So if you are leaving your house, for example, you know how to leave your house, right? You know there's a front door. You could leave from the front door. But if you do not have that, if you do not know where the front door is, then you cannot go anywhere, right? So that works the same way. You have to define where your front door is. And the way you could define it in this routing table. If this is not set, then there's something wrong with your routing table, and you have to run some routing commands to set your routing table, and then it should work. So let's talk about the next step of actions when you have a ticket or someone reaching out to you and telling you that they cannot connect to a website or an application for that matter. So this is the topic where we will cover about how you could go about troubleshooting when you cannot connect to a website or application. But please remember one thing. Many times people will reach out to you and tell you, hey, my server or that server is down. Now you need to ask whether the server is down or the service that runs on that server is down. Many times people don't know the difference between that when they cannot reach a website. For example, they cannot reach google.com, facebook.com, or they cannot connect to the database. They will say the server is down. Well, in fact, the server is not. Instead, the application that runs on that server is down. So let's see how we could troubleshoot this type of issues. So first what we have to do is ping the server by host name and IP address. That is something we learned in the previous lecture, that the first thing you have to do is always ping the server. So now this is before we're getting into like a website or application. Why we need to ping the hostname and IP or IP is because if the application that we are trying to troubleshoot is running on that server and that server is actually down, then regardless whether the application was running or not, it will actually come down with the server. So we will see how we could troubleshoot. So I'm gonna log into my Linux machine. Oops, not that. Sorry. Okay. This is my Linux machine. Okay, so first thing I have to do is ping the server by hostname and IP. So which hostname that I need to ping? Well, of course, the hostname that you're trying to troubleshoot. In our example, we'll pick google.com. So I'll do ping www.google.com. You see, it is pingable. Perfect. So that is the first test that we fixed it, that it works. Perfect. Now, if you are not getting a response from the host name, then what do? You ping the IP. How do you find the IP of the host name? You do ns lookup www.google.com, and you will see your DNS will resolve that host name to an IP address, and this is the IP address. So let's ping that IP address. So 172.217.7.4, and you could see you can ping. So you could ping from the host name, you could ping by the IP address. It means the server is up and running. Now we need to get into details about how we could troubleshoot the application that runs on that server. So let's get back to our slide, and the next step we'll see is if not pingable. So we just pinged it, right? If it is not pingable by hostname or IP address, then what you need to do, you need to go back to my first lecture that we talked about, how we could go ahead and troubleshoot issues like that. Next one is if it's pingable, which we just tried. So perfect. If it is pingable, then we need to connect to a service. The service command would be telnet, the name of the IP, and the port number. Every service that runs on a server always will have a port number. Why they have a dedicated port? Because a server can run a multiple applications. So if you have a server, it could run a web browser, a web server, it could run a database, it could run an NTP, it could run NFS, it could run SendMail. These are all the services that are provided by your server. So of course, when you try to connect to your server and to any of the services, you cannot use that one IP because one server will have one IP. Then how do you connect to the services that run on that server? So they have come up with the idea of picking ports and giving those ports to every service that runs on that server. Okay, so if you wanted to learn more about the ports, how they came up with, or how they are assigned, I would say you could look it up online. You'll find tons of information. So what we are troubleshooting here is we are trying to troubleshoot that the website is down, for example, or the application. But for now, we'll just keep on website. So in order to verify that, we have to run this command telnet, IP address, and port number. And on my right-hand side, you'll see I have listed where each command does for. Now we will run that, of course, on our environment in my Linux machine. So I'm gonna bring up my Linux machine again, and this time I'm gonna run the command telnet right here with the IP address. So telnet, the IP address 172.217.7.4. Let me just clear this or hit enter so I could show you clearly. 172.217.7.4. You're probably thinking, why am I using IP address? IP address is the best way to use if you type if you fat finger a host name. You could end up getting not connected, and you would think, oh yeah, it's not reachable. So it's better to use IP address. Now you will need to use port number to see whether you could connect the website on that server. Let's hit enter. And now what do you see? You see the telnet command not found. Most of the time when you have a new Linux server or Linux distribution running on your environment, you will not have the command telnet installed on your server. So in order for you to troubleshoot further, you have to install that telnet command on your machine. So if you go through the sequence, we'll see if telnet command are found, then what do? You do yum install telnet. Okay, so we'll do yum install telnet. But of course, make sure your machine is connected to the internet and your machine it can reach the Red Hat repository or CentOS repository. If you are running satellite, again, just make sure you are connected to the satellite. So let's go ahead and install telnet. It'll go out, it'll look for telnet package, and it'll come back with any information that we need. And I'm sure you probably know about the yum install. And it's asking the total download information, what it needs, and what not. So I will go ahead and click on Y to install. Install, yes. Okay, the telnet is completed, so you could just run just telnet to verify if it works. See, it works because you are in the telnet mode. You could get out by typing quit. Now you could run that same command by so you could, if you're running bash, if you're in a bash shell, you could just hit up arrow key. That will bring back your command that you ran earlier. So we'll do telnet IP address off the Google and port 80, and we'll hit enter. And you'll see right here it says trying. So it tried, and it says it is connected to this. When you get this message saying connected to this IP address, and then you get escape character is this, it means the service on the target server which we are trying to troubleshoot is running. Your test is completed. It works, so it means the service is running. That is perfect. If it was not running, then you would have probably seen that access refused or access not connected or some type of error message for that matter. So if it's gonna stay like this, it's gonna be it's gonna stay there for a few minutes. You could wait until you get your prompt back, or you could just type control and bracket, which is right above the enter key, and it will give you the telnet mode as again. So you could just do quit, so to get out of that telnet mode, so you could get your prompt back. Perfect, nice. So we say that telnet command not found, so we ran and installed the telnet. Next thing, if connected, it means the service is running. So we have confirmed that the service is running, meaning the Apache server or whichever the application that is serving or that is running on port 80, it is running. If it was not running, if it was running and you connected, but you still, the customer still says, or your client still says, hey, I'm still having problem, then what do? Then there must be something wrong with the client machine, meaning the machine they are on. Maybe they don't have internet access, or they are not on the correct network. So you could ask them to actually try to connect to a different server, try to connect to a third server, and I'm pretty sure they won't be able to connect it. So in your case, if you are troubleshooting your own server, then try to connect to a different server to see if you could connect. And I'm telling you, 9 out of 10, your system will not be able to connect to other servers either. All right, so then what happened if you try to do telnet with the IP and the port, and it comes back and says if not connected or cannot connect to the service, then it means that HTTP service or that Apache service is not running. Then what do? You log into that target server where that Apache service runs or where that database service run. You log into that server and then you start that service. Or you could troubleshoot why that service is not running for whatever the reason that service is not running. And to do that, you could actually simply look for that process. So if I wanted to see if my NTP is running or any process is running, I could do ps minus ef grep for NTP, and you'll see right now it's coming back there is no NTP running. So if you wanted to see what other process you have that are running on your machine, you could come in here and you could see there are different processes that are running. So let's say right now if I wanted to see if my network manager is running, so you could do ps minus ef grep minus I network. Just type network. You'll see that the service network manager is running. So just like that, let's say if you are trying to troubleshoot an issue of SSH. You logged into the console, but you wanted to see why you cannot connect to the server. So you will do ps minus ef grep SSH. And you'll see right here the SSH daemon, it means it's running. If it was not running, then you would have to go in and restart that service. So it's all about service, how you could connect to the service, how you could troubleshoot the service, how you could use different tools like telnet to connect to a service, not the server. So keep that in mind. These are the few steps that we need to follow. Try it different ways. And again, let me know if you're still having issues and you can't figure it out. All right? Thank you. Cannot SSH as root, or you cannot log in. Meaning you could connect to the server, but when you type in your username and password, it's not letting you in. It's a login issue. So again, this is type of related of access issue. When people say, I cannot access the server or server is down. Again, you have to find out whether the down means they cannot connect, or they could connect but they cannot log in, or they could connect, they could log in, but then they cannot connect to a service. So there could be many things. So we are getting into more and more details. So this way you know how to troubleshoot. This lecture is more geared toward accounts and login. So let's see how we could troubleshoot these type of issues. So first thing, what do we have to do? Always ping server by host name or IP address. We have done that many times, so we're not gonna do that. So what happens if the server is not pingable? What do? Of course, you go back to the server not reachable lecture, the very beginning one that I mentioned. It has all the listed instructions of what you should do when a server is not pingable. So I'm sure you have accessed it, try it out. Then if the server is pingable, then what do? We connect it to the service. So the user is saying, I cannot log in. Okay, maybe user is not even getting to the point where it's giving the login prompt. The only time you will get a login prompt to a server when the server or the target server where we are trying to connect to have the SSH service running, or telnet service is running. Well, by the way, nowadays nobody uses telnet, so I would just stick on SSH. So if you are connecting from one server to another using SSH protocol, then you have to make sure the destination or the target server has SSH program or daemon running. SSH program or daemon runs on port 22. So we will ping, if it's pingable, perfect, then we'll try to connect to the service using telnet, which we already tried that. We know how does that work. Perfect. All right, so if connected, so it means, what does it mean? That means that SSH daemon is running on that target server, so you don't have to worry about that service. It's running, it's perfectly fine. What could be the reason? So now you are getting the prompt, the login prompt, but you cannot log in. Keep one thing in mind. If you are logging in as root, most of the time, or most of the companies have root access disabled by default, meaning you cannot log into a server using root account, directly root account. You would have to log in as a regular user or local user, then become a root user. I have seen many companies practice this type of a rule or this type of policy. That's fine. It's perfectly fine because it actually secures your system. So not anybody could log in as root. So what we need to do is we need to check for permit root login in etc ssh sshd underscore conf file. Alright, let's go into my machine. This is my machine, my Linux machine, and let's suppose this is the machine where user is trying to connect to, or this is the target machine. So the user cannot connect to the machine using root account. Alright, so let's verify if the user root is permitted to come in directly. And how do we verify? We'll go into cd etc ssh. Then there is a file called sshd underscore conf. So we will do vi sshd underscore conf. Hit enter. This is a big file, so what most of the time what I do, I search for specific parameters that I'm looking for. So to search in a VI editor, you type slash, which is right below the question mark, and you will type look for permit root. Just hit enter. You don't have to type the whole thing. Hit enter, and it will bring you exactly where that parameter is defined. So you look at it and you'll see right here it has a hash in front of it or comment in front of it, which means this parameter is not enabled or not defined in this configuration file. So what does it mean? It means that root has access to come in directly. If I had this as uncommented and from yes to no, like this, then it means permit root login no. Then it will tell you right away that root is not allowed to log in directly through SSH. So you either have to make it yes or completely disable this parameter. Okay, so you come in. Let's undo whatever we did. So you come in and you notice permit root login is yes, but that parameter is disabled. It has comment in front of it. Perfect. So I could log in as root. Perfect. So what else could be the problem? Why can't I log in as root? Then most of the time, or I would say 9 out of 10, you are putting in a wrong password. Or I will tell you right there that username or password do not match. So you have to make sure you are putting in the right password, or you probably don't have typed in so many times the root password that it has locked you out. So you could go into whatever that happened, or whoever tried to log in, you could go into cd var log, and there is this log called secure. See right here, secure. I just did ls minus ltr, or you could just do ls minus l, and then you could go through by the alphabetical order, and you see this is this log. This log has all the information about any user who comes in, how many times they have tried, or how many times it has failed, or whatever happened to the user activity. So you could do user secure, and you'll see all that information right here, and you could tell, oh, See, this user, whoever is coming in, they're trying to log in that many times. As you see, right now I am logging in. The last session that I had, it says session open for user root. By UID, this is a UID for the root. If I had typed in a wrong password, it would have put it in the wrong password. So let's try if I could do that. So I'm going to duplicate this session. While I'm duplicating, I'm going to just tail this secure file so you'll see what message will come up. So I'm going to log in as root, and I'm going to put in a wrong password. As soon as I put a wrong password, you'll see in the secure file it says password check failed for user root. Authentication failure. See, this is where you could come in and you could check the log for secure of people who are trying to log into your system and is failing. And you could also see failed password for root from this IP address. So anybody who is trying to come into the server, their IP is also recorded. So this var log secure log is very useful in terms of security. Make sure you look into it more often and see who is coming in and how they are coming in and how many times they have tried. Anyway, you could control C out of it now. Now let's go back to my slide and we'll say root is not permitted. We have checked the parameters. Next one is if root is permitted, everything looks good. Then what else? User does not exist or has no login shell. Meaning, if you are trying to log into the server using, let's say, IFSol, and you're saying, hey, the user, I cannot log in. Why? Well, one of the reason is probably there is no local root IFSol account exist on the server. So if I have an account, let's see, if a user trying to log in with a user ID, let's say IFSol, and I will come in, I'll do ID, IFSol, and it will tell me the user ID, IFSol, group ID exists. Perfect, so it means it is there. But if they are trying to log in with some different name, let's say PFSol, it will tell you no such user. Then you could tell the user or the issue that you're having that this user does not exist. Why you are logging in with that user? Okay, now if that user exists, then you still cannot log in. Then what will happen? Well, most likely, then your password is incorrect, or you have no login shell. What I mean by no login shell, if you vi the file /etc/password and hit enter and go to the user IFSol or whichever the user that you're trying to troubleshoot, you will see it has the username and all the fields. Different field means different stuff. Anyway, the last field, anything that is separated by columns is actually a different field. So last one, you'll see it has bin bash, which means that I do have a bash login shell. So I don't have to worry about it. That's not the issue. But if it had something like this, has been no login, it means that the account account is there, but that account is not allowed or not authorized to log in. So you will know right away why you are having that issue. So that's also one of the things you need to keep in mind. Let's moving on to our third troubleshooting step, which would be the user account is disabled. That is also very likely that when you try to put in a username and password and you forgot the username or forgot the password and you try a few times, it will eventually lock you out. And those lockout parameters is defined in pam.d parameters and etc configuration files. So we could look into it later on, but you could also go in right now to find out if you could find it, well, after how many retries the account will be locked. That's one way. Second, maybe your account is locked. It's not locked, but it's disabled. So how do you check if it is disabled? So we'll go into our machine, and if you do vi etc password again, And let's go to IMf&x. Right here, if I put in a hash or something else that will take out the entry, or I believe there's also in Etsy password, there's also bang or something like pound that will tell the Etsy password that this user is disabled right now. You could do that, or there are commands to disable a user. So whatever the command is, we are not talking about that, but we are trying to see if you could find anything before your name. If IFSOL is there, there might be something in front of it that tells you the user is disabled. So make sure that user is not disabled. Moving on, so now we checked everything. If the service is running, service is connected, we went through the all configuration. But what if you ping and telnet to that IP with port 22, which tells you the SSH daemon is up or not? If you're not connected, then what it means? That means that SSH daemon is not running. Then what do? Well, you cannot log in that machine. Then how are you going to start the service? The only way to start the service is that you have to log in through console. If you have a physical system, then you have to come through its console. Like Dell has iDrag, HP has ILO. Similarly, if you are on a virtual environment, you could go to VMware console or VM console, and then you could log in and start the service. So again, log into the server and start the service. This is about the lecture about not able to connect through SSH as root and user and hopefully server purpose. Again, you have any question, let me know. Firewall, which is one of the most important topic that I wanted to talk about in this lecture. As firewall, its name stands, firewall is actually a wall that keeps away the fire or keeps away or protect your system against any kind of intrusion or viruses. That is why we have a firewall. Now remember two things. One is there is a firewall at the network layer, which means the network folks actually have a device, a physical device that runs the firewall application, which actually protects the entire infrastructure. Now there's another firewall that every server that you install, whether it's Windows or Linux, that has a firewall. That's the firewall we need to talk about in this lesson. So in previous lectures, we have talked about when you cannot connect from server A to server B. What do you do in the troubleshooting? You ping the server by hostname and IP address. If it's not pingable, of course, as I said, you could go back to your lectures to the one that I talked about, not reachable. If it is pingable, we'll connect to the telnet with the IP and port. If the telnet command does not exist, you would install the yum telnet command. If it is connected, it means service is running. Then is something wrong with your own client machine. Check that. Now that is where we have our machine. Sorry, that's not where we're gonna have our firewall. Keep moving to the right side. Now, if not connected, which means you're trying to connect from server A to server B, and as you're getting a connection refused, you log into the server and try to see if you could start the service. Nice. You have started the service. Everything is working as per the plan. Now you're still having an issue. What could be the issue? Now here is something that I'm adding it here that will help you, trust me, significantly when you are troubleshooting issues. And that is a firewall. Every time you're trying to connect from one machine to another and your connection is being dropped or refused, or even if you're running the command, this telnet IP and port, and as a response to that command you get a message that says connection refused, it means right away you could tell that the service actually, let's say HTTP service is running, but the server itself is actually refusing the connection for me to establish. Then again, it's 9 out of 10 times that's a firewall issue. You have to log into the server and either disable the firewall or do the configuration in the firewall to allow the traffic for that port. So this way when server A goes to server B, it will able to establish that connection. So let's log into our machine and let's see how we could access our firewall. So let's say if this is my Linux machine, I wanted to make sure the firewall is not running, and or if I wanted to know the status of the firewall. If you are using Red Hat 6.5 and older, or 7.5 and older, I believe you will have the way to check the firewall you would do is service, IP tables, status. Because IP table is the name of the service that runs on the older version of Red Hat. And you run, by the way, now this has been replaced with firewall D. So first let's check IP table status, and it will come back and it says redirecting you to the newer command, which is the newer command of systemctl status IP table service. This is a new command that is used in Red Hat 7.5 and above. So let's run that command and let's see what it says. It says unit IP table service could not found. So now we know this IP tables is not running, or somehow that service is not managed by the systemctl. Let's try to run ps-ef and grep for IP tables just to make sure. Nothing came up. Whatever that comes up is just this, is actually trying to grep itself. So when you run this command and you get the output as follow, it means it's just grepping the grep. Okay. So now we know IP table is not running. Now next thing is check firewall D, which is a newer service that is introduced in Red Hat 7.5 and above. So for that we will do system ctl firewall D. No, that would be systemctl status firewall D, and hit enter. And that's where you will see it says the firewall D dynamic firewall daemon loaded, active, and it is running. So if you have that active and running and you cannot connect from your server A to B, you know right away, I have found a problem, I need to disable that firewall. So how to disable it? You could just simply run the same command, systemctl stop firewall D. Once that is disabled, check the status again, and you will see it says that it is loaded, meaning it is enabled, but its current status is it's inactive. Now when the system reboots, the firewall D will become active again. If you want to make sure it does not become active at the boot time, what you do is you run systemctl. Instead of start or stop, you type disable. Now this is disabling it. It says remove symbolic link, which was pointing to the service. That's where you started on. So now you know for sure the firewall D is disabled. Now when you try to connect from server A to server B, it will work. So the whole point that I'm trying to convey here is make sure your firewall D is disabled on the server or on the target, on the host where you're trying to connect. Alright, thanks. Terminal or client is not working. Well, that's something that you also hear sometimes from the people, or your own self. You're trying to connect from one server to another. Now first let's find out what is a terminal or what is a client. So what is a client? A client is something that allows you to connect from the server that you are on to another server. That client could be, in our example, is PuTTY. There are also many other clients that are out there that you could buy, like CRS and TerraTerm. There are many of those clients that actually allows you to connect from one Linux or one Unix machine to another Linux or Unix machine. So one way to connect is through those clients. The second way to connect to that client is if you already have a session or a Linux machine running, then the client that you could run is SSH. That's the actual command that can be used to connect to the other server. So at that point, that SSH command is also serves as a client. If you are telnetting to another machine, then you would need a telnet command, and many times people will refer that telnet as a telnet client. If you wanted to have that telnet client in Windows machine, you could also actually install that telnet, and it will show up as telnet client. Anyway, this whole lecture is about telling you why we cannot log into the other server when your terminal or when your client is not working. So first of all, we will look into our putty machine, and this is our putty client. So one thing you guys have to make sure is when you come into this putty, you would have to put in the IP address and host name here. If your host name, if you cannot connect with the host name, then you would need to try the IP address. Second thing you need to keep in mind, the port is 22 because SSH only listens on port 22. If you change it to port 23, 24, then you're probably gonna, pull your hair, and then you're gonna say, hey, I am putting in the right host name. I'm putting in the right IP address. Why can't I connect? The reason you cannot connect is because the SSH does not listen on any of the ports except 22. Then the connection type at the bottom, you'll see there are different type of connection: raw, telnet, R, login, SSH, and serial. If you notice, every time you change it, let's say if I click on telnet, it will change to 23. If I change it to R login, it will change to a different port. If I change it to SSH or serial, so make sure SSH is the one that is connected and the port is connected to the right one. Then you have save session. That's where you put in the IP address, and then you click on open. That's one way. The second way that we could do is by going into our Linux machine that we have it up here. This Linux machine is about how we could connect from one machine to another. So you need to use the command SSH, and followed by what? You need to connect to the IP. So I could connect to myself in this example. So if my IP is 192.168.1.34, then I could do SSH 192.168.1.34, and you'll see it will connect me to myself. It's opening up another session, and I am logging in. And now it's telling me I am logged in. So that's how you connect using SSH. You could also type it in a different username by putting in -L and the different username, let's say IFSol, and instead of it logging in as root, it will log in now as IFSol, and I will provide my password for IFSol, and when you do who am I, you will see it's logged in as myself. If you make a mistake in SSH syntax, that's when you're gonna have a problem, and that's when you're gonna say, or you're gonna see to yourself the client or terminal is not working. Hello everyone, and this is your instructor again, Imran Afzal, and in this in this lesson, I'm going to cover the issues that you might be facing connecting to the Linux through PuTTY. Now, I do have a few students, very limited students, who did experience some of the issues when they build a Linux VM, they install the operating system, and then when it comes to the point when they use a PuTTY session to connect to the Linux machine, they are having issues. So I'm going to quickly cover what could be the issues, or how what are the steps that can be taken to resolve those issues. Some of the issues, the primary ones, is the NIC setting on the Oracle VirtualBox. So if you go to Oracle VirtualBox and go to network, and there is a NIC setting that you have to make sure it is selected and it is configured the right way. We'll cover that later. Then the advanced setting on the NIC on the same Oracle VirtualBox setting, that will also covered here as well. And the third one is if the network interface is down at the operating system level, which means that your NIC setting is perfectly fine at the Oracle VirtualBox level, but on the operating system, the interface itself is down. So you will have to bring it up or restart it. And the last one would be the SSH daemon is not running on your Linux operating system, which is very, very highly unlikely, because by default, when you install Linux operating system in your machine, the SSH daemon is running. But anyway, I am covering this just in case, just to make sure that you have you have went through all the different troubleshooting steps. So I have my Linux machine open. I'll go over it and we'll cover all of these steps one by one. So this is my Linux machine that's already up. Now the first thing that I have mentioned is NIC setting on Oracle VirtualBox. So now what is the NIC setting? If you go to Oracle VirtualBox, which is this window, and from here you select your Linux machine and then go to setting, and then there is this option called network. In this network option you have this adapter 1. It says enable network adapter. Make sure this is checked. The reason you don't see on my Oracle box not checked or grayed out is because my machine is running powered on. If you power it off, you will have this enable network adapter checkbox option available to you. So make sure it is checked. The next thing you have to make sure is that you have host only adapter selected. Now we have different options that we'll cover. First one is host only adapter, which means that you could connect only from your PC or on your laptop where you're running this Oracle VirtualBox. You'll connect from that PC to your Linux machine, and you cannot go out on the internet. And then on the name side, you have a VirtualBox host only Ethernet adapter. There is no other option, so by default you have to select this one. So when you have this host only adapter, then you click OK. Then you go back to your machine and then you type ifconfig or IP, whichever the command that is available to you. You hit enter, then you'll see ifconfig. The first interface that we are concerned about is this one, and this is the part that you have to look into. The other two, LO and VIRBR0, just ignore that for now. I have covered these two interfaces in my module 7. You will learn that in module 7 what are these different options are used for. But anyway, for now just focus on this one, which is ENP0S3. And if you notice right here, the INET right here, it is the IP address of my Linux machine that is given to me. And also you have to verify that this interface is running, up and running. And if you have all the settings correct until now, but you still do not have an IP address right here, which would be in a case like this. If you do if down ENP 0S3, hit enter, and now if I do ifconfig, you'll notice I do not have that INET IP address, right? So if that is your case, then what you have to do is you either have to restart your network service or simply do if up ENP0S3, hit enter. Once you hit enter, you'll see the connection successfully activated. Now when you do ifconfig or IP, then you will see that you have an IP address 192.168.56.101. That's one way of doing it. The other way, you could simply restart your network service. The command to do it is systemctl restart network.service and hit enter. It will bring down your interface and bring it back up. And then you run ifconfig and you'll see you have this IP. Now by default everyone should have the same IP address, so you could just go into your PuTTY machine, PuTTY terminal, and then you input the IP 192.168.56.101, and then you could simply click on open, and there you have your login prompt. So that's how you actually create a connection between your PuTTY session and your Linux machine. So let me open up a new session here just in case. Go on to the other one. So just close it. So once this is closed, so now the second option I wanted to cover is this one. It says advanced NIC setting. So what is advanced NIC setting? Sorry, one more thing before I go to advanced NIC setting. Let's go to the other setting now. If you go to your VM and then click on network, there is attached to, there's another option. So now if host only adapter option is not working for you, That is fine. Don't worry about it. It's not the end of the world. Pick a different option, which is bridge adapter. Pick that one. Now in bridge adapter, as soon as you select bridge adapter, it's gonna give you a different option for the name, which is Intel R dual band wireless. Now my laptop right now is connected to the internet wirelessly through the Wi-Fi. So make sure if that's your case, then you select band wireless. If your machine, your PC or laptop is connected through the Ethernet cable, which is a physically wired cable to the modem or router, then you will pick the Ethernet connection. This is the one which is the wired connection. So you'll pick that. Anyway, I have the wireless, so I pick wireless. And then you click OK. Once you click OK, then you come back to your Linux machine and then you do the same thing. You restart your network service, which is systemctl restart network.service. Hit enter. And you got your prompt back. Now type IP config, or sorry, if config. Hit enter, and now you will see you have a different IP, 192.168.1.8. Now this is the IP your Linux VM is getting from your modem in your house or at your work. Now you could just simply go again into your PuTTY session, and now you could type 192.168.1.8 and click open, and it will give you the prompt back. So this works the same way. The only difference between host only adapter and bridged adapter is that bridge adapter will allow you to communicate outside on the internet. So if you wanted to download anything, or if you wanted to open up a web browser on your Linux machine right here, then you would need a bridge adapter. But if you do not want to go outside, you just wanted to have a communication between your PC, where you're running this Oracle VirtualBox, and your Linux machine, then you pick host only adapter. Now the third option I said that you could try out is the advanced setting. When you click on advanced drop down menu, make sure that Intel Pro 1000 MT desktop is selected for your adapter type. Now this is my adapter model that is inside of my laptop. You might have a different model that represents or your Wi-Fi card. So by default it should pick the one that is attaches to your card. Then promiscuous mode, leave that as deny. That's fine. That's a MAC address. You don't have to change that. Make sure the cable is connected, and then again, of course, you hit OK and come back here, and then you could try doing the same thing. Systemctl restart network.service. Now what is systemctl command? That is something that we will cover in module 7. The last one I have on my slide is SSH daemon is not running. Now what does it mean? It means that when I go into my machine, all you have to make sure, but again, as I said earlier, this is the chances of this not running is very, very slim, but still verified. And to verify that SSH daemon process is running, you do ps -ef pipe it and grep it SSH. ps -ef pipe it grep SSH. What the hell is that? Don't worry about it. Just run this command. You will learn this as you go on with my training. I just want you to test these and see if you get this output. And if you do get this output, especially this line that says user sbin ssh-d, this shows that your daemon, or the process that is listening to accept your incoming traffic, it is running. So that is perfect. Now in my case it's running, in your case it should be running. In case it's not running, then I would say that you do systemctl restart ssh, and when you hit enter, sorry, it's probably sshd, yes, so it will start back again. It's the chances are very slim, but you should try that too. So anyway, these are the few troubleshooting tips. If you're still having issues connecting from PuTTY to your Linux machine, then don't worry about it. Just send me an email. I would prefer if you could send me a screenshot. That'd be great, and I will definitely help you.